Let's West, y'all.
She was like, have a look at the setup, see what he's doing.
Oh, really? You should start a podcast.
Well, she's also, like, we went to law school together.
Mm.
So we're, like, both know-it-alls, you know?
Yeah.
Like, we're like, of course somebody's going to want to listen to us talk for 40 minutes.
Yo, you'll be surprised. I mean, law, so it will be around law, the podcast?
No, it would be more, like, because we're the same age as well, so it'll just be more about, like, life journey stuff.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. This is buzzy, listening to your own voice.
Well, it helps because there's people that come on and say they feel uncomfortable hearing their own voice.
I'm looking at myself in that camera.
No. But then, it's...
Uncomfortable.
For me, anyway, it's like a form of concentration. You can actually...
You can actually, like, focus, Focus. Oh, yeah, you can focus, It's like I'm talking straight to you.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. No, I think you guys should. Like, is there any timeline? Or was it just the idea? Just thrown around?
We were talking about it from last year.
Mm.
And then she went away to South America. And then when she came back, I went to Las Vegas.
Oh, yeah.
And so it's like we're still actively planning it. We've got a spreadsheet and everything. But we just haven't done it yet.
Yeah.
So we're hoping to soon.
Yeah.
Because we're both like, not unemployed. Like, I'm self-employed now. So we're just, figuring it out.
So what does it feel like being self-employed? Is it scary? Especially starting out. Like, because, you told me you quit your job to do this thing you're going to do.
Yeah.
Like, how scary is that?
Have we started?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you said it wasn't recording. Sorry. What was your question?
Like, how you're working for yourself now. Like, yeah, the job. And you quit to go all in. Like, how scary was that for you?
It was scary. It was like... but to be honest, like, it was time, so that overshadowed the fear of it. It was time for me to make this move,
right? And
everything, like, a lot of things had been falling into place that were telling me, like, it's time now to do this. And so, although it was daunting, is probably the word I would use. It was daunting, but it felt right.
Yeah. Because I think the advice that's out there is that, like, it's the confidence, and for you it's like it's time, right? Because it's all the work you've done in the past to get you to this point where you can just move forward all by yourself, sort of thing. It's not like you're jumping in the deep end. You know how deep the water is.
Yeah.
Already.
I've been filling up the pool myself.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. And I had that thought over in Las Vegas. I was like, I had to keep reminding myself of all the work I'd put in over the last few years, and that was what I was, like, enjoying the benefits of all that work I'd done. Like, don't forget it. It didn't start in January when I quit my job. It started 2-3 years ago when I made the intentional decision to start, like, figuring out exactly what I really wanted to do. So all those small steps, like, joining associations, networking, reaching out to people over the last 3 years, like that, I had to keep reminding myself of that work, and that was my foundation. So it was like, it's not that I've taken this leap into nothing. It's I've built this bridge over time, and then I've taken the leap. So it's like, yeah.
Because that building the bridge, that is important, and I think that's missed by most people. People that have discovered what they've done for the last 10 years or 20 years is probably, man, I wish I did something else, or they find a new passion and, but it's too late because they have to pay the bills and all that kind of stuff. And but, realizing earlier on and just working towards it, I mean, that's another extra layer of trying to get to a new goal, something to do. Because I think most people miss that,
Yeah, that makes sense. And that's, I think, why maybe people get discouraged, because they think that all they see is the moment where it's like, you need to take the leap. You need to take a risk and trust yourself. And it's like, well, yes, but that's the only part you see, like, on social media, where it's like, you got to back yourself. But really, like you said, like, it's about building that bridge and making those small steps. And, like, I was still working as a solicitor in this other job while I was actively, like, pursuing my sports law stuff on the side at nighttime, on the weekends, like, paying out of my own pocket and the support of my friends and family, like, to go and build and slowly build at like what I really wanted to do, even though I was still working in another industry.
Yeah. But in law, like there's different avenues to law. So you building towards a sports kind of industry, like you chipped away with it for like 2 years, 2 years or a year, or
Yeah. Yes. So basically, the way I got into sports, I have to go all the way back to that, is my mum played rugby league when I was growing up. So I grew up in a rugby league community,
right?
and I was always around rugby league. Like Sundays were spent at Otahu Rugby League Club, and like mum played for AMSA. So we went over like for the Perla over in like the Gold Coast, and we would travel there. And so I've always been involved in rugby league and sports communities, and my mum tried to make me play,
Right.
and I was like, hell no. But she was like, if you're gonna be here, you need to do something. And so then she like threw the clipboard at me, and like when I was 12, that's when I started my journey in like sports administration, sports management. So I had always, from that point, I'd always been involved in rugby league. Like what's it called? Like co-managed a team when I was 15, like from the Marlins, and then got into like with Counties Monaco and got to manage a rep team, like 2 rep teams. We took over the Cabra Nines and the Ethnic Rugby League, which is a competition that counties started just for like people from communities that are minorities to rugby league, so like Indian or Chinese. And I managed like the first team from that competition, and so I'd always been involved in that kind of stuff. And then in COVID, when we were in lockdown and working from home, is when I was like, man, I don't really enjoy what I do.
Yeah.
You know, I don't really enjoy what I do, what I've built my whole life to this point to be working in. And the most happiest hours of my week are when I'm like managing a rugby league team or working with the board of Counties Monaco.
And that stuff was way before law, right?
And that stuff I was doing before law. And then, but as I started becoming, like as I was in law school, and then even as I started practicing more, I started to become curious about, what laws govern sports? You know, I was like, I wonder what, like, if we have any legislation governing this stuff, and health and safety procedures, and the structures and frameworks, and like sanctioning and all this kind of things. I was just becoming more and more curious about. And so that's where I started like looking more towards sports law. And yeah, so that's kind of that's how my path kind of diverged from what I'd built it to be, all the way from high school, all the way through law school, and then in my first years of practicing as a lawyer, and then how it kind of diverged from there to where I am now.
Yeah, that is interesting, and it's cool you're in a profession where you can divert to sports, because you know, the industry of sports, you know, you need law. I mean, there's laws for the rules of the game. There's laws how to set up a sporting organization to be in society, and because effectively it's a business, right? It's a business, and you got to see all that.
It's a business. It's an ecosystem. Like sports is possibly the most universal business in terms of, it's like global. Everywhere that there is sports, there is commerce. So it's funny because if you're like purely a fan or a consumer of sports, you don't necessarily like the idea of like regulation or rules, like and you will often question things like with the refs or, you know, with judging if you're in combat sports. But when you're a fan and like a regulator, or a fan and a person working in the industry, you know that it's necessary to deliver the sport. You need to have frameworks, structures, and all that sort of structured, you know, way to deliver a sport. Whereas as a fan or consumer, you don't see that side of it, and so that's where you can kind of get like annoyed at the judging or the reffing, because you don't understand why it's necessary, or you don't understand the rules, like the actual rules and regulations.
Right. So it's like, for example, rugby now, especially rugby unions, there's a concern about CTE and head knocks, and so the rules are changed to try and mitigate all that. And people say it takes the spectacle out of the game sometimes because there's a lot of stoppages in union because you gotta do HIAs and now they change the rules. Now you can't hit like above the waist sort of thing. In England, they're trying that out, and so it affects the whole game in the long run, though.
Yeah,
and that kind of stuff.
Exactly that. Like that's a perfect example of like if you don't really understand why it's necessary to put into place concussion protocols, then of course you're gonna just see it as they're ruining the game, they're watering it down. But when the research has been done about the effects of concussion, like recurrent concussion on athletes who put themselves on the line every week, you can better understand why those rules are in place. But if you're purely looking at it from a fan consumer perspective, like I said, it's hard to accept that those rules are changing. To accept. Yeah,
and I don't know if you're watching the NRL, but even the ex-players saying, it was ruining the game, when I was there, we were hitting, that kind of stuff. But I don't know, it's like, with more cases of CTE coming out, I think he had Billy Guyson, he committed suicide now because
I'm not sure.
He had CTE.
Yeah.
And he passed. He was the first rugby union athlete diagnosed with CTE because you can't even diagnose it until you're there.
Yeah, it's hard.
Yeah.
It's difficult. It's difficult, because you need to also try to balance, right? Because if you over-regulate something, then it really does change the essence of it.
Yeah.
So, and in sport, people are consenting to a certain level of assault on their body.
That's right.
So it raises the question of what's the threshold of how much assault you can consent yourself to, and that's an interesting legal question. Yeah, it's
but it's something that hasn't been resolved yet. Really, they haven't figured it out what to do. All rugby union can do is change the rules around it.
Yeah,
and it seems to me like big part of the talk around social media and when you watch these shows on TV, it's a big reason why NRL was better than league is more popular now. It seems like. I mean, you see, as a spectator sport, you see rugby union, you watch Super Rugby on TV, you see the empty seats out there.
Yeah, I gotta admit, because I'm a rugby league girl. I'm from a rugby league family. I'm very closed-minded to even watching union, and so I don't really understand it and I don't follow it. But it's funny, right? Yeah.
No, it is funny because I'm a rugby union guy. But I tell you, this year and last year. Ever since the Rugby League World Cup, I've been a Rugby League fan. I've been watching more Rugby League now than Rugby Union. I can't even watch any Super Rugby.
Yeah.
Only the Blues, because I'm a big Blues fan. That's the only games I watch. And then I'm watching NRL. But I'm not just watching Warriors. I'm watching all of the games because it's so competitive.
Yeah.
The product is really good. It's flashy. I
think the NRL are just on a really upward kind of trajectory. In terms of how they've been marketing themselves and they've definitely elevated themselves since doing the Las Vegas venture thing, which, by the way, I was at.
Were you?
I was.
Was that your trip, your Las Vegas trip?
Yeah. Do you want me to explain the trip?
Yes, please.
Yeah, okay. So my sports are rugby league and MMA, right?
Yeah.
So I started, about maybe 10 years ago, I was introduced to Muay Thai through going to Smack Gym in Rewa. And then I don't know if you have much to do with combat sports, but it's the kind of thing that once you're in, it's hard to get out. Even if you stop going to the gym, you'll still kind of keep an eye on the sport. And so I always kind of kept an eye on it, but I never really fully watched until around COVID. I really got into MMA through a friend. And so anyway, that's that. And then, I got into it, fully into it. I was like, man, this is amazing. How have I not watched this for the last 30 years, basically. But, so I'd always MMA, rugby league. And then last year when the NRL announced that they were going to Las Vegas in March 2024, I was like, man, it would be so cool to be at that, the first one ever, you know, but still not a good enough reason to like go to Las Vegas. And then near the end of the year, the UFC announced UFC 300 was going to be in April in Las Vegas. And I thought, my two sports on the biggest stage in the same place around the same time, there's no way that I'm not going to be there, because all the execs in my two biggest sports are going to be in the same place. I'll be able to like try and meet with them and, you know, make some connections. And so, yeah, that's when I decided, I was like, all right, this is it. I'm going to do it. Quit my job as a senior solicitor and booked my flights to Las Vegas. I went for 7 weeks, and I started it with the NRL Las Vegas, literally the first week I got there. And then the last week I was there, it was UFC 300, closed it off, and then came home.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
But it's amazing that you just followed it and just went.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, like we were talking about, is the bridge, right? I've been building the bridge over the few years and getting involved with the New Zealand MMA Federation and always staying involved in rugby league. I'm on the board of Counties Manukau Rugby League Zone. And so always just kind of keeping an eye out on the industry and what's going on.
Yeah.
So when I heard about those two events, you know, and their details, I was like, I think it's time.
It makes sense, because obviously there's a big deal in NRL going over to Las Vegas to try and showcase the sport.
Yeah.
Everybody in NRL office will be there. You know, who's not going to be there from the NRL office, you know, the main office. Same as even the UFC, like the MMA stuff.
Yeah, so the UFC is based in Las Vegas. And Las Vegas, like Nevada, is the combat sports regulatory capital of the world.
Because they've got the laws that you can, because there's some states that you can't fight there. Like, it's hard to get around.
It took a long time, but it is legal in most states, or if not all now, in America, in the States. So, yeah, and they have actual laws in place. So I wanted to go and meet with the athletic commissions, who are the ones that regulate like boxing and combat, all combat sports, but mostly interesting for me is MMA and boxing. And then I wanted to meet with someone from the UFC. I wanted to meet with someone from the PFL, which is UFC's kind of biggest competition, or the second biggest MMA promotion in the States. And I just wanted to, reach out to like sports lawyers, sports attorneys, managers, agents, and just get some insight from them about combat sport regulation in the States and how it's structured there and how we can do it here, how we can do it better here.
Okay. Yeah. So who is your connection here in New Zealand?
For
combat sports, so to bring that knowledge over.
So I'm consulting with the New Zealand Mixed Martial Arts Federation, and they are the national sporting organisation for MMA in New Zealand.
And you just developed that relationship with them just over time?
Literally 2 years ago, I as I was just doing my little research, building my little bridge, and I was like, I wonder what laws MMA is governed by in New Zealand, and so I just like Googled who looks after MMA in New Zealand, found an email address and just flicked them an email, and I was like, hey, I'm just curious, which laws are you guys governed by in New Zealand? And then I ended up getting a phone call with the president of the federation, and that lasted like 2 hours, and he just told me all this, all these things about the combat sports regulatory scene here. And from there, I just kept in contact with them because I saw ways that I could support them in their goals, and vice versa. So it just kind of worked out that I just kept like kind of keeping up with them and checking in, and then like this time last year, they actually got me to like do some work for them. And since then, we've just kind of maintained a relationship, like a working relationship, where I will do a lot of work around the regulatory space and like governance and like their relationship with Sport New Zealand, who oversees sport and recreation in New Zealand. Right. Yeah. So that's my connect in there. So
everything you learned from that trip coming in to help the New Zealand organisation, like what what benefit was it? Was there stuff that you learned that we didn't know that you were?
Yeah, 100%.
Man,
100%.
that's awesome.
They have been doing it for a long time. They've been regulating combat sports for a long time. And when I say regulating, I mean there is legislation in place which allows them to create health and safety and sanctioning and licensing regulations which are enforceable. So having legislation backing them and their actions makes their decisions enforceable. Whereas in New Zealand, we don't have, for MMA, we don't have legislation backing what we do. So it's that the actions of like the decisions of the federation, although they are like the federation is free to make regulations and impose, sanctions and do the licensing and stuff, it's not enforced by law. Right. So it gives it a little less teeth. But what that also means is that
it can be rogue compared to what's going on in
at
America.
The moment, like you could chuck a cage up in the backyard and start a show.
Right.
Which sounds great, but the health and safety risks for the public are high.
So we don't have a law.
So there's the only one we have is the Boxing and Wrestling Act.
Right.
And that's from 1981. And it exempts any traditional martial arts. Obviously, at the time, MMA didn't exist, so it doesn't even mention MMA. Right. But I suspect that it would also be exempt by the traditional martial arts provision. And the main purpose of that act, is to require a promoter to get a police check off. So not a police background check, like just you need to go to the police and get it, like them to say yes you can, yes you can't, or no you can't do this promotion. So that's our only legislation which is directly about combat sports. So yeah, it can be a bit rogue.
Yeah.
But I mean, besides the health and safety issues that raises, it also means that it can be difficult for us to plug into the global combat sports industry, market, all that money. Like MMA is multi-billion dollar industry. But we're unregulated here. So there's only so much we can do as a federation, or like the federation. No, I'm not speaking on behalf of the federation here. There's only so much we can do from New Zealand without, I'd say, like the credibility of regulation. Because regulation, and this is arguable, regulation gives a place like credibility. If it's just a Mickey Mouse, nobody's in charge. There's nobody, you're not going to get in trouble for doing anything. You're more likely to look at that situation and be like, okay, Yeah. Whereas, so like the UFC, they come out and they say we run towards regulation. So they'll go to markets where there is a commission which oversees the sport, because then what that means is they can go directly to someone, and that body takes care of like the officiating and the sanctioning and all that kind of health and safety, and they take on the liability of the health and safety.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's a structural thing.
Yeah.
You got all your structure in place.
Yeah.
In terms of law or health and safety or whatever.
Yeah.
It's all there in the package. We can come, and if a country says, "Oh yeah, come because you already got it sorted," come. Yeah. You're safe to do it here, or safe to do it there. I'm
not saying that it doesn't stop promotions from coming here.
Yeah.
But it also it's difficult for us to approach and like make a bid for, hey, come here, come and do an event here, because this is the structure we have in place. This is, how we're ensuring that the sport is growing here in New Zealand, and you can come and be a part of this. As like a legislation backed commission type organization, you have a lot more standing.
Right.
Yeah. Rather than just being like, hey, we're the guys that we are kind of in charge of the sport, and will you come here? Whereas it's like, if it's just like, if it's more official, then it's more it's got a little bit more standing.
Yeah.
And then we can actually, if more effectively plug into the global sports network, which is making so much money.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So what status is the MMA Federation of New Zealand? Is that
the New Zealand MMA Federation?
is that so how far is it behind the sport of boxing then? Because I assume boxing, is Olympic sport. It's got all the.
Well, that's right. So because MMA is not when something is an Olympic sport, that already adds an air of credibility to it in terms of like regulatory, but also in terms of funding, because there are a lot more funds open to Olympic sports than there are, or like I think high performance sport New Zealand is calling them podium sports,
Right.
where as opposed to sports that are not Olympic sports. But like, so do you know about high performance sport New Zealand?
You just told me.
So they are like, they're a subsidiary of Sport New Zealand, and they're in charge of high performance sport, basically.
Yeah.
So our Olympic athletes, say. And they're starting to open their funding avenues more, but like in MMA, the New Zealand team, which used to go to the world tournaments under the International MMA Federation, like they had the record for the most consecutive gold medals, like at the Worlds. And they were like, we had top 10 ranked athletes in like most of the divisions. So we're not an Olympic sport, but MMA in New Zealand, the athletes are high caliber. And not like this is ignoring like people like Israel and Dan and Kai, like ignoring all those professional guys. Like I'm talking amateur. Like our results in amateur MMA worlds is very impressive. But because it's not an Olympic sport, it doesn't attract the kind of funding and attention that those types of sports do. Yeah.
Even though they go to the internationals or
even though they go to
champs
internationals and they get gold, silver, bronze medals, or like fight of the year or fighter of the year, all these like incredible achievements, because they're not an Olympic sport, it's really difficult to get the spotlight on those guys.
Yeah. Excuse me. It also talks to how sort of New Zealand has this feel of not putting our achievements in combat sports up there with the rest of the...
100%.
Israel Adesanya is a good example.
Yeah.
And
Adesanya is how you pronounce
Adesanya.
it. Yeah.
Is a good example. Of that. I mean, look what he's achieved.
Yeah.
And feels like New Zealand fails to recognize it.
Yeah. There's a lot of things that go into that. So this is all in my opinion, right? And like I said, I'm not speaking on behalf of the Federation or anybody. I'm speaking on behalf of myself. Combat sports in New Zealand there's still not a great perception, like it still doesn't have a great public image. And, I'd say that that's because people, when you think of combat sports, you think of like street fight. That's what people who don't watch combat sport, they just think of the violence. They think of the blood. They think of the pain, Whereas those who actually watch it or practice it and train it, like that's when you start to see it as an art and understand that it's a craft. It's like people put in the hours for years to get, to be able to do an armbar. It's like it's just like when a young boy goes to the Mountford Park and practices his kicks for like 7 hours, in a row, 7 hours straight. It's just like that. But it's the public image of combat sports which we need to work on, to try and, I don't know how we do it, but yeah.
Yeah, how do we do that? Because obviously winning isn't enough.
No, winning's not enough if people don't care about the sport.
Yeah, exactly.
Winning's not enough if people think your sport is cockfighting, which is what it was like. MMA was known to be in the States before it was getting regulated properly. So you're right. Like winning doesn't matter if people don't care about the sport. So then you have to ask the question of why don't people care about the sport, and how can we make people care about the sport? So
Is it the New Zealand culture, they reckon? Because obviously it's popular overseas. Like in some countries they love it, and that's the reason why UFC is up there. It's one of the biggest organizations. In the world, right?
UFC had an uphill battle though in the States, and I don't know what it is. It's like, for me, I think that it's there's a few angles that it needs to be addressed at, and one is from the top down. So it's about those who have the resources and power in sport in New Zealand, not naming any names, organization names, I mean. There needs to be like a very intentional strategy for marketing combat sports. And that needs to come from having a very open conversation with the important bodies, organizations, and being able to communicate the positive aspects of combat sports and how it can, help, say, youth or children. And combat sports, like Terry Hill, who's the president of the MMA Federation, he's been in combat sports for a long time, longer than I've been alive, much longer than I've been alive. He very passionately talks about how you can't teach a kid what they learn from being in a ring with another kid and just having to, first of all, stare your opponent down and then go and fight them and then either deal with the win or the loss. And it's just you two. It's just the two. It's you and your opponent. And so it's there's no sport that teaches that other than combat sports. There's no sport that teaches how to deal with loss or winning outside of combat sports. So it's about trying to sell that. We need to be able to sell that to the powers that be, so that there's a very intentional resourcing into combat sports, because that will start to change the perception. If, say, the big sports in New Zealand organizations start putting money and screen time towards combat sports, then people will start paying attention to those positive aspects.
Are there steps to make that happen or go down that path? Because it seems real valid, especially the mental side of it. Yeah. Because even in the sport of boxing, the whole winning and losing thing is two extremes, and to even get in the ring, it's a big, to get in the big, to go in the ring and fight someone. Yeah, it's sort of the hardest thing you could ever do.
It's incredible, right? I've never had a fight.
Yeah, but you can see it in their eyes.
You can,
and see it at the end of the fight when someone wins or someone loses. But but what they get out of it.
It's the mental. Yeah. I think Izzy says that he's it's about building mental fortitude. It's that can only come from losing or winning, that can only come from being tested in that way. But even before, you don't even have to have a fight, but even training for a fight or helping a friend train for a fight, you can understand just how much mentally that takes from a person or requires from a person. And it's just incredible. I have a friend who's a boxer, shout out Lenny Helu. She her commitment to her craft is incredible. Just getting up, going to training, and then having training again, and then having training again. It's man, you are really committed to this. It's incredible. There's just something about combat sport athletes, the energy that they have, that they require for their craft is it's out of this world. If you've ever been around that, you're just wow, it's very, very impressive. And so I don't fight, but I like to think that I take that energy into my work, right? Combat sports law, so I'm not a combat sports athlete, I'm a combat sports law expert. And so, I just think, look, if I can take that energy into trying to elevate combat sports in New Zealand, I think we'll get there, because it's incredible what those athletes do, and to be able to try and build a bigger platform for them to do that, and for them to see the return from all that investment they put in. That's for me a purpose worth committing to.
The stories are all there, eh? I mean, this is the story to sell the public, right? Yeah. And you see it works. I see it works. It's a positive story coming out of something that they might find negative, of punching someone in the teeth and blood and guts and all that kind of stuff. But
guts? What fights have you been watching?
Getting punched on the gut. I think that's the saying, going blood and guts. Anyway, just that the positive side of it, I think is real big. I mean, everyone's played sport. Everyone's played basketball or rugby or whatever sport it is. Everyone's experienced winning and losing. But I think with the sport of any combat sports, even boxing, because it's an individual thing, that winning or losing is much greater than a team sport.
Yeah,
I think.
Yeah, that's true. But also, I had a good conversation with Matthew Valenzuela, who's the chief assistant to the executive director of the Nevada State Athletic Commission, and we were talking about that whole thing. And his philosophy was, combat sports is not an individual sport, because somebody has to open the gym for that person to come and hit the bags. Somebody has to mop the floor to make sure there's no sweat when they're hitting the bags. Somebody's in their corner. Somebody's doing the housework so that person can go and hit the bag. So it's it is an individual sport in obviously the most important sense, but
the team around
it's also
it
creates a team. There's a team environment around it, and it's there's a whole ecosystem required to for a fighter to do their thing. Even people will win in the UFC, they'll win a fight and then they'll thank their team, they'll thank their stablemates, they'll thank the people who helped them with sparring. So it's it is an individual thing. So we need to be able to focus on that, the good individual side, but then if the question is, well, what is it good if it's only an individual sport? It's well, actually, there's a team culture, and there's a team investment required to make it happen. Yeah. So, yeah, whatever. I can't even remember what point I was making with that.
No, it's all good. So where are we at right now in New Zealand with MMA? Where are we now? How healthy is it? How healthy is it now? And what's the trajectory to the goals, the goal that you see for the sport in New Zealand? Is it trying to get UFC here?
Well,
or something like that?
Good question.
Pathways?
I think we're at, to go back to your original question, we're at a very important place where if we make the right steps in the next few years, then we'll be on an upward trajectory. But if we don't, then we are at risk of just plateauing or doing what we've been doing for a while. So the goal is, one of the goals is to get the UFC back here, because they've been here 3 or 4 times now. But for New Zealand, again, these are my personal thoughts. For New Zealand, we need to focus on how to grow the sport here in New Zealand. We need to think about how we're going to grow and create more pathways for people to learn the sport from an earlier age and get involved from an earlier age. Because because the sport is so young, what happened was a lot of people have just fallen into it after doing really well in kickboxing or boxing or, whatever. And then they'll just give MMA a try. Whereas what we need to be trying to work towards is creating what rugby's been able to do for 100 years, which is develop kids from 5, so that they're already developing those skills, and then they're conditioned by the time they're 18 to play the sport. So we need to be thinking about how do we create those opportunities for more kids to get involved, more youth to get involved. But with that, of course, comes the responsibility of health and safety regulations in place to ensure that the kids are safe and the youth are safe while they're practicing this new sport. So it's about pathways. I think what else needs to happen is we need to try and grow the sport or like level it out, because obviously at the moment it's very Auckland heavy, because this has so far been the road to the UFC, like is through Auckland. But there are so many incredible MMA gyms around the country, or gyms which have an MMA component and an MMA trainer, coach, whatever. And so it's about trying to figure out how to build the ecosystem so that all those other parts of New Zealand can also thrive and become their own like hotspots of MMA, you know? So it doesn't all come through Auckland. So finding a way to really like I said, like grow the pathways, grow opportunities for those who are already fighting, like for amateurs, having more shows to give them opportunity to have more fights, get more experience, build their record so that they can, you know, have enough fights before going pro. Because of course what happens here and in Australia as well is there just aren't that many opportunities for amateur fights. So a lot of people end up going pro too soon, and then all of a sudden they're retired at 22, you know, and so it's just about trying to flesh out the sport more, which of course takes structure, investment, resources, and the Federation is starting to work on that. And a lot of what I did in Las Vegas will contribute to getting that done. And the connections I made there, which are very beneficial for the Federation here and just for the sport in general. Not just for the Federation, but for the gyms here. You know, like I got really, really good insights and information from over there, which I will be, you know, offering to the MMA gyms here about just building our capabilities because, of trying to plug into that global network better. Because, at the moment, who is New Zealand in global MMA? We've had, obviously, a few amazing fighters, but it's about not getting caught up in that hype. Not hype. It's about thinking long term about how we can continue to produce incredible athletes in New Zealand that can then get into that bigger scene in the States and wherever.
So, man, you know, it's pretty cool that, you know, you got to go to Las Vegas, but even more cool that, you know, you got to meet some of these people behind us, you know, to bring up back that knowledge. And, you know, you said that you sent emails, let's have a meeting.
Oh, mate.
Man, what was your itinerary for all that kind of stuff? Like, was it like, okay, you're seeing all these emails from here, then, I got to set up this meeting. We're going to have a meeting with this person. And we're gonna, was that how it worked? Or did you go there like, you know, who did they expect to see? Like,
I just, I am possibly I'd say I'm possibly one of New Zealand's greatest networkers, first of all. Like, I can send an email. And I can get my little LinkedIn, you know, when you send a LinkedIn request and you write, like, there's only like 200 characters. Oh, mate, easy work. But,
because you're practically doing the work that the Federation here would do, but you're just doing it on your own accord. Oh.
Well,
am I right by saying that?
I already was interested in doing it on my own, and I would have done it on my own anyway. But because it aligned with a lot of the Federation's goals, I was happy to do it like kind of in conjunction with them. Right. And so like they like supported some of my trip because of some of the work that I did on their behalf over there. And then when I got back, they flew me to Dunedin, for a fight night, but also for the annual general meeting to report back to the board about what work I'd done and what connections I'd made in Las Vegas. So it's a weird thing where it's like I would do this by myself anyway, but because it makes sense with what the Federation wants to do as well, we're kind of doing it together. So what was your question was, what was my itinerary, mate?
Yeah, or how did you end up, I know you sent emails in there, but man, just to organize these meetings and to see the right people and to knowing what information you need. And, you know, obviously you going on a, you know, because the base of it was finding out the legal side of things now and then bringing it back here. But just the planning of it and what does that, man, it's just amazing me that you just go and do it, you know, like.
That's me, man. Like, honestly, my friends, my family know, like, if I'm going to do anything, I'm going to send me an email. Like, I'm going to try and reach out to people and just see if I can connect with them. So, yeah, basically, when I first started making moves into sports law, I joined the Australian New Zealand Sports Law Association.
Do you just fill in a form? Or?
Yeah, I just literally Googled, like, sports law New Zealand, and then it came up. And so then I was like, oh, interesting. So I signed up for them, became a member, went to they had conference in Queenstown, went to that and just like met so many good networks there, people who were already sports lawyers in Australia and New Zealand. And anyway, so I did that, and then I did that again last year. So when I was going on this trip, I basically just reached out to anybody who might be able to get me in touch with anybody that I had met, you know, like so I met somebody who worked in like Queensland Rugby League. And so I sent them a message. I was like, hey, could you get me in touch with someone at the NRL? You know, like preferably somebody who's going to be going to Las Vegas. And then they did. They got me in touch with somebody. I'm not going to give names. But that person then got me, and I just flicked them an email, explained who I was, what I was doing, that I'll be in Las Vegas, love to meet them, you know, and just, you know, see how I can help out. And because I knew that they had done a commercial partnership with UFC, and I was like my whole thing is MMA and rugby league, so happy to have a conversation. And so then I eventually was put in charge with this guy, John Vellis, and he at the time was like special projects. And so I think he like had been like kind of like brought on to help with the NRL Las Vegas stuff specifically. And I just said to him I'd be in Vegas, you know, and so I'd be arriving on Thursday, and then the game was Saturday, right? So I'm arriving on Thursday, and this is him. Oh yeah, cool. How about we meet Friday morning? So I was like, I arrived like Thursday night from 20 hours of traveling, you know? Right. I was like, absolutely perfect. See you there, John.
Gotta do what you gotta do.
Yeah, gotta do what you gotta do, man. I was like, yeah, see you there, John. And so the funniest thing was I was in my Uber to go and see him at like the Hilton Resort World, whatever, you know, this fancy. And the Nines was afterwards. They had a Nines competition, so I was going to go meet him and then go to the Nines. So I was wearing my Warriors jumper,
right?
My Warriors shirt, and I was like, oh yeah, cool, you know, I'm just going to go meet him. Anyway, he calls me when I'm in the Uber, and he's like, look, spanner in the works. This is me and my Australian accent. Spanner in the works, but I think it's a good spanner. And I was like, oh yeah. And then he was like, so I forgot about this event. It's the first ever NRL Business of Sports conference, and we're holding it, and you know all the club CEOs are going to be there, and the ARL commission, and you know, and like we've got the president of the 49ers like coming to speak, and someone from the UFC. So did you just want to come to that? I'm really sorry. And I was like, this is my first day in Las Vegas, hey, you know. And I was like, well, I've definitely been double booked worse ways, John. So yeah, I think I'll come along. Right. I got there, everyone was in their suits because they've come dressed for this conference. First ever NRL.
And you just woke up?
Business of Sports. I just rock up, got my chucks, got my Lokes on, got my G-Shock on, and got my Warrior shirt. Everyone's in like suits, you know, fancy schmancy. And then I see this John guy, and I was like, John, what the hell? Like, look at my clothes. He was like, don't worry about it. And so then, I walk in, everyone's kind of like just mingling. And there's free food. So I'm like, oh yeah, I love some free food. Go get some food. And he was like, you can sit anywhere. I was like, hey, do you mean that? Don't say it if you don't mean it, because I'll sit in the front table. He was like, I mean it. So I went and sat in the front, on the front table. I was like, I don't care. When am I ever going to be back here? I'm going to sit
Are these
on
all
the
round
front
tables?
These are all
Like,
round tables.
okay.
Yeah.
No, allocated just...
No, not allocated.
Oh, okay.
And so I sat on the front table, and then only, like, there were these two men sitting there.
Mm.
And I was like, can I sit here? And they were like, yeah, sure. And I said, you guys must be important, because, like, nobody wants to sit with us. They were like, nah, we're not that important. Anyway, then they got called up, hey, oh, yeah, this is Wayne Pearce, like, the ARL commissioner, and this is, I was just like, oh, my gosh. So it was crazy, man. And honestly, because that happened on my first day, like, that kind of set the tone for the whole trip.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And, like, from then...
So
like,
John's your man.
John's my guy, man.
Yeah.
And you know what's cool is that since then he's been announced as the president, or whatever it's called, the VP of the Las Vegas venture. So like it's an actual role now. So
Is that for the NRL going there?
NRL going there because they have like a 5-year plan.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, man. So
he's on your phone. You can text him.
That's my
and say,
guy.
What's up?
Yeah, Yohangi. Hey, how's it going? It's me, Adeleina. Yeah. But no, but that's what I mean. Is like that's just how I make connections. It just has worked that way. So anyway, yeah, I think because it went so positive on that first day, I was able to like draw from that energy for the rest of the trip.
Right.
Like what. Another time was when I was like making a plan of who I'd like to see at the UFC, because like this is me, I chose an Airbnb which was like close to the UFC, like 10 minutes walk, because I just wanted to like be close to there and like be able to walk past and just be like, those vibes, say, let me in.
Yeah.
Or like scope out the place. But but I had nobody, I wasn't going to meet anyone or anything. There was no reason for me to stay that close to the UFC, except for the whole symbolic thing of just like trying to get close in there. And when I was making my list of like, who do I want to speak to at the UFC? And like, I joked that I was like, it'd be good if I could speak to Mark Ratner. Mark Ratner is the Senior VP of Government and Regulatory Affairs. And like, he's like a big dog in combat sports regulation. He was, he was part of the Nevada Commission when Holyfield and Tyson, when he bit the ear, his ear. He was part of that. He was actually, when he bit him the first time, he the ref was about to call it, right? But he went up to the ref and he was like, "Are you sure?" Because is it like in terms of the rules, the regulations, it wasn't an automatic disqualification. So it was like, that's where he was like, "Are you sure?" And then of course he carried on and then he bit him again, And so he was part of that. Like that. This is Mark Ratner. And he was at the commission until the UFC like poached him,
right?
To come and kind of lead the charge for getting MMA legalized in all the states.
Right. It's interesting that you said his name, because I would have thought you would have said Dana White, but it's strictly legal stuff.
It's like that's what I mean. It's like unless you're in it, like if you're just a fan or consumer, you don't really know who's in what role, you just think, oh, Dana White, like Dana White is the UFC. It's like
that's who the fans know.
That's who the fans know, because he's the guy. But for what I want to learn for New Zealand, I wasn't going there for a Hollywood reason. I wasn't obviously like I would have loved to meet Dana White, but I didn't need to for what I was trying to do for New Zealand. And so, I was very focused on like what the types of things I wanted to talk about. So I joked like to somebody, I was like, oh, it'd be good if I could get Mark Ratner. Ha 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 ha.
Think a minute.
Yeah, but then I was like, I didn't have his email address, but I had a UFC email address from somebody from last year. And then I just guessed I guessed Mark Ratner's email address. And this was like a Sunday night. I was like, I'll just try, give it a go. Sent him an email. Woke up Monday morning and he's like, this is my phone number. Call me and we will organize a time.
Really? What did you say?
In my email to him?
I mean, to make him...
I just said that I was there from New Zealand and wanting to learn about like combat sports MMA regulation, because we want to try and see what we can do better in New Zealand. And that I was here for 7 weeks, and that I was, trained as a lawyer, and and then he just literally, like, when you're emailing important people is when they only give like 3-word replies. He was just like, this is my work phone number, call me Tuesday afternoon and we will sort out a time. So then I did, and by Thursday I was at the UFC, man. I was there, and I got to sit in his office, which honestly is bigger than my house, like.
Shucks.
Yeah, but and got to talk to him about what we're wanting to do, and just if he had any advice, if there was anyone else he thought I should speak to while I was here. And just it was awesome. And then afterwards he was like, oh, do you want to look around the facilities? And I was like, this is me. Oh, that would be nice. And they hit in my head, and I'm like, of course I want to look around. But I was like, oh, yes, thank you, Mr. Rat. And that does sound delightful. So then we just got to like walk around the facilities, went to the gym. I don't get, like, something about me is like, I don't get like, what's the word? Like,
starstruck.
I don't get starstruck, and I don't fangirl, because I just see athletes as like people, and like just leave them to do their thing. If it's gonna work that you'll have a conversation, then it will, and if not, then it's not.
You did talk Palangi to him though.
To who? To Mr. Ratner. Yeah. I don't know, man. I had a blazer, and I wore my pair, and then but I still had my Lux, I still had my G-Shock, and I still wore my Chucks, So like that's something really important to me, is like it's like it seems like a little thing, but it's about like being myself in those spaces. So
absolutely.
Recognizing the like significance of them and how serious they are, but also just like recognizing who I am in that place. And it's like they're just symbolic things. But yeah. So then it just kind of went that way. So I didn't have an itinerary. I literally just like reached out to people. One of my favorite stories is so the ABC, have you heard of the ABC? So they are the Association of Boxing Commissions and Combative Sports. So every state has its own athletic commission, and then the ABC is the association of all those commissions. So all those commissions are part of the ABC. And someone had suggested to me that I reach out to the president of the ABC, Mike Mazzulli.
Wow. Big dog.
And he was part of the meeting, like the first meeting that, like when they created the unified rules of MMA, which is like incredible, because that's like that's big dog stuff. And anyway, Mike Mazzulli, and they suggested having a conversation with him, but he's based in Connecticut, which is like on the other coast and by New York. And so I flew over there, and
when? After Las Vegas?
So 4 weeks I was Las Vegas, and then I did 1 week in New York and Connecticut, because they're like right next to each other, and then I came back for my last 2 weeks in Las Vegas. So I flew over to Connecticut. I flew into like the cheapest place to fly into, which was like 5 hours away from where I needed to be. So then stayed in this dingy ass motel, and then caught a bus in the morning, then caught a train, and then caught another train to try and get to this Mike Mazzulli guy. Yeah. But what's crack up is I didn't text him until that day. Like, this is me. I've already flown over to where he's going to be and taken 2 trains. And I just messaged him, and I was like, hey, I'm blah, blah, blah. Could, just my same like spiel about who I am, and would love to have a chat if you're available. This is me already on my way to where he is. And then he messaged back, and he was like, yeah, how's 2:30? And I was like, that's perfect. Thank you, sir. This is me. I've got my like heavy ass backpack, like my traveling clothes. He's based at the Mohegan Tribe Reservation, which is like a casino, so he's based in the casino. There, yeah. So like I get in there and like go to the bathroom and like do my hair and like change my clothes to try and look official, after I've been traveling for like 10 hours to come and see him. And then we had a meeting, and it was awesome. Right. He really liked having a conversation with me.
I guess he's interested in the reach of MMA and how, obviously he knows about the fighters coming out in New Zealand. right? And
Yeah.
Just curious. Maybe he's curious that New Zealand should be a big kind of stopping point or station for MMA.
Yeah, he. I mean, they all know the people who are like. Oh, so one of the misconceptions I had, which was how far away and how big the MMA regulation industry is. When I went there, like every person I spoke to talked about the same people. It's like so small. It's a really small ecosystem, the combat sports regulatory system over there. So it's like they know. They're all aware of New Zealand and what we've been able to produce so far, self-funded, self-governed kind of thing. But I think he was more just like, not just him, but like I found this with a lot of Americans that I spoke with. Like they were very impressed with what I was doing over there.
Right.
Because, Americans, they respect the hustle way. There is no tall poppy syndrome over there, man. I loved it. It was so like, here like somebody's like doing something cool or different and you're like, you think you're so cool, eh? Like even if you won't say it, but you think it. Whereas over there, they're like, yeah, we're all hustling. Like, we're all hustling and we respect, like, if you're trying this hard to do something, like, we'll do what we can to support you, which was just so cool. And it actually opened so many doors to conversations with people because they were just buzzing out at, like, they were like, you came all the way from New Zealand just to talk to me? Yeah. And I was like, yeah, man, you're the big dog. I wanted to talk to you. So I came here, quit my job, like, sold my car, sold my couches, sold my bed. Like, it's
but even in the top rung of that on that level, they still respect the hustle.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, for sure. So that was really cool having that conversation. And again, like I said with the itinerary thing, it's like I was messaging him on the way there. I was really just kind of trusting in how things had been unfolding. One of the like fun ones was so I have a friend who's a lawyer at I always get this wrong. One of the big media companies.
In America?
No, in Australia.
Oh, yeah.
It's an American company, but he...
like Fox or something?
Nah, I can't. I'm actually not sure if I'm allowed to say it.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah. So anyway, I was talking to them and they said that they had a contact at WWE.
Oh.
And I was like, oh yeah, that's cool because that's interesting to me because I need to keep up to date with how TKO. Do you know about TKO? So TKO is like the parent company of WWE and UFC.
That's Silver Lake, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Silver Lake and Endeavour.
Yeah.
So that's why WWE is important for me to understand and like what they're doing business wise. So they're based in Connecticut as well, which is where Mike Mazzulli is. So
is ESPN there as well?
Yes.
ESPN's in Connecticut.
Yes, that's right. It was actually just down the road from where I was, but I didn't get to go there. But,
what's the name of that town? It starts with B. What's the name of that town? Loses me. It's famous for having ESPN there.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I should know because I was there, but I can't remember. But
interesting story. You know why ESPN is there?
Why?
Because the satellite, when they first started, in the 80s, that's the only place the satellite could get their signal.
And now they've just stayed there.
They've stayed there.
Crack up.
But that was the only reason why they're there. Yeah.
It's good though because it's kind of out of the way. So anyway, so the first day of my trip, right, I went to see Mike Mazzulli, ABC president, and then the next day I went to Stamford, which is where WWE is. But I hadn't heard from my friend like who was going to get me in touch there.
Right.
And so I just like walked past the headquarters. I was like, man, that's a cool headquarters, man. I want to go in there. Like they have that big belt out the front. But it's like all locked down. Like you can't go in there unless you're invited.
Right.
Anyway, I was like, oh, okay. Well, I'll just stay here tonight and then I'll go to New York early tomorrow because I was gonna, I was hoping to go to WWE that day. Anyway, I was like, not sad, but I was like, oh, this is like the first thing that kind of hasn't worked out for me, like hasn't just fallen into place. And so I was like sad eating my Wingstop, at my little side of the road motel. And then I got an email, and my friend was like, "I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I didn't, blah blah. Are you still there? I'll just see." Blah, blah. And then within like an hour, he was like, "Okay, she'll meet with you tomorrow if you can go there at this time." So on that Wednesday morning, I went to WWE headquarters, which, oh my gosh, it is like exactly how you imagine WWE headquarters to be. There's like a ring inside, like they got all their posters. Like there's like, as soon as you walk in and go up there's like this massive painting of Andre the Giant. Like, just like you go up the elevator, and then there's like just the what's it called? Like a shrine to the Undertaker. Like, it's just, oh, this is my favorite one. You know what their staff cafe is called? Snackdown. Oh, I couldn't.
That's a good one.
I was like, man, I could not. I was like, no, it's not. She was like, it is. We'll go there. And then we went there. I was like, it's literally called Snackdown.
It's got the same logo, but with snack.
But with an N. Oh, it's so funny. And like, anyway, so that was incredible. I met with one of the head of legal and business affairs there, just talking. And this is just like, this is an example of how my trip kind of felt. So I was just talking to them, and they introduced me to this other lawyer who's in charge of like the talent. And she's like, "Oh, are we going to see you this weekend?" And I was like, "This weekend? What's this weekend?" She said, "Wrestlemania." And I was like, "Oh no, I hadn't planned on it. This is me like catching buses and trains. Hey, yeah, I can't afford it. Like, of course I'd love to be there, but I can't afford it." But this me, "Oh, I hadn't planned on it. No." And I'm like, "Where is it?" "It's Philadelphia," which is like the next state over. And then she was like, "Well, if that's something you want to do, just let me know and we'll organize a ticket." And then I was like, "Oh yes, well, I have been wanting to go to more live events while I'm here, but on the inside I was like, holy shit, like, I'm going to go to WrestleMania, And so...
so that was like 3 weeks ago? 3 weeks ago?
Yeah, that was like the 7th of April or something. Yeah, so it's like a month ago now. But yeah, so...
Don't tell me you went.
Mate.
Did you go?
I went to WrestleMania.
Did you?
Straight
Were you
up.
there?
I was there.
Fuck.
I was there, mate.
Damn.
All from that Tuesday night being sad that I didn't get to meet them, and then getting that email that I'm going to meet them, going to the headquarters the next day, and then they're saying, "Do you want to go?" And I'm like, "Oh, I don't know, like, maybe." And then...
Did you go birthday, Saturday and Sunday?
Nah, so I already, like, that Mike Mazzulli who I met on the Monday, he invited me back to the casino on the Saturday, because they had a boxing show. And he just invited me to come and observe what the commission does, which was really cool because you know where I was sitting? Ringside. So close that we have to cover our glasses when they're coming and fighting on the side because the blood and sweat is coming onto yeah. It was amazing. So that I already had that for the Saturday. So then I
you had to work on Saturday. So
yeah, I had to work on Saturday, and then so yeah, Saturday so on the... what day was it? Wednesday, I went to WWE. Then they said they'll get me a WrestleMania ticket. Then I went to New York because you just catch a 20-minute train to New York. Then I went to New York, and I went to the New York Athletic Commission, met with the director of boxing there. And he took me through like their procedures and gave me a copy of their rules and regulations and showed me all of the like gloves that were approved and what they check and stuff.
Wow.
And then I went to... like a Sports Lawyers Association event at the NFL offices actually, and then on the Friday I caught two trains back to where Mike Mazzulli was. Did the boxing show Saturday, and then 7 a.m. the next morning caught a train to Philly, 4-hour train to Philly. And then my friend that I made on MMA Twitter from like years, we've been following each other. He's like, the only thing I know about Philly is that he lives there. So I just was like, "Hey bro, like I'm here. Like, what are you up to?" And he was like, "Oh my gosh, I'll pick you up." Picked me up. We went and had a cheesesteak and some beer.
Was that? Cheesesteaks.
Oh mate, it was yum ass.
Yeah.
It was good. I mean, you're kind of like, oh, what is it? It's just like steak and cheese and bread. But it's yum. Like, there's something different. I don't know what they do.
But you know the steak cheese pies? It's not like that kind of
texture.
texture.
Nah, it's not. It's like what bone? It's like fall off the bone, but there's no bone. What's
Right.
that called? Like tender.
Just the meat, and cheese.
Yeah, and cheese, and but the bread, yeah, it's nice. I don't know, man. And
Do you think we can make it here or no?
yeah, my friends have made cheesesteaks before here.
But does it taste like?
Nah, of course it's not gonna taste the same.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just like, but you just tell yourself, hey, oh yum, this is just like being in Philly. But yeah, so he picked me up and then he dropped me off to Wrestlemania. Then I went to Wrestlemania. Bloody incredible, mate. 72,000 people.
And you went on Sunday too.
And I went on Sunday.
You witnessed.
I saw The Rock.
Yeah.
I saw John Cena, CM Punk, and mate, when you hear dung,
Yeah.
and everyone was like, ah! I saw the Undertaker, mate. Oh my gosh, and I saw Snoop Dogg. So it was like,
Oh shucks.
it was crazy, man. Like that's out of it, eh? Like people save for ages to go to WrestleMania.
I mean, when I saw it on TV, like it went lights out, and then you heard the ding, and then the lights went on, and
it was like, because The Rock was like, he was winning, he was doing his whatever, and then we heard the
ding.
yeah, and then the lights off.
Went up.
And then everyone was just like, what? Because nobody knew that the Undertaker was going to be there. And then, when the lights came on, he was behind Rock. Oh my gosh, it was really cool, man. Honestly, the fan engagement, like that, amazing, just amazing. But as soon as that was finished, I caught my train to the bus station, caught my my bus to New York, and then caught my flight back to Vegas from New York. It was crazy, man. See what I mean? Like that was like the theme of the trip, and it's all thanks to Seonge from NRL. Shout out John, man. Like
Shout out John.
Shout out John. He really set the tone for my trip because it just was like that, like the whole way. Yeah.
Whereabouts did you stay in New York?
I stayed, man. I don't know. It was by the river.
Oh, okay.
But I was only there 2 nights
Right.
because I did the 3 nights in different places in Connecticut, 2 nights in New York, then back up to the casino 2 nights, and then the Sunday I was at WrestleMania Philly, and then just caught the train back to the plane.
So when you got off the plane, when you got to Las Vegas, you didn't even know you were gonna do all this stuff.
Nah, man.
Fuck.
I just had like hopes and ideas. And some email replies.
That's what you call freestyle, or I don't know. What do you call that?
Yeah, man. I don't know. That's like
But that's like one after the other.
It was like unreal. Like honestly,
Unreal.
Because I was sharing it on my I was sharing it on my Instagram, and every day people were like, "What the hell? Like, how do you keep like one-upping yourself?" Like all of a sudden I was like at Ray Seffel's gym, like watching Sean Strickland, sparring. And then, it was just crazy. It was like, people were like, what the hell? Like, how did you manage to, people could not believe it when it was WrestleMania. They were like, what the, like, this is crazy now. Like, you need to stop now. Like, this is way too many successes for one trip. But they weren't saying that. But it was just crazy, man. Absolutely out of it.
If I can try to explain your experience, I reckon just your passion for what you want to do, you going for it, creates these opportunities. And I think these opportunities come because obviously when you have a passion, you have a goal, right? But you walk towards that goal, and along the way you're going to get these opportunities. You don't even know what's ahead of you. All you know is that goal, but along the way is what happens. And I think that's what happens.
Yeah.
I think it's not like it becomes easy because the opportunities just come.
Yeah.
Like if you're in a different direction, those opportunities won't come to you, right?
Yeah. I think there's something about like when you like give in to the dream, or like when you relinquish the power that you're holding, of like when you relinquish the control of, no, this is stable, this is what I know works, this is how I can pay my rent, like this is how I have always lived, I know this works. Like when you let go of that power and put it into something like kind of unknown but that you've been working towards, like you get rewarded, or like something's looking after you. Like, you know, you just like you said, it's like the passion, but it's like the energy, like putting the energy towards that stuff. Not to sound all like universe, whatever. It's just like when you put your efforts and thoughts and energy towards a goal, like it starts to happen. But it's not that, like, see, it's about reframing, It's like, it's not that it starts to happen, it's you're making it happen, with every, like,
unconsciously.
Yeah, well, you're unconscious, like you're intentionally making these decisions to reach out to people, to go to events, to sit through workshops and to like network and all this stuff. But what you're not realizing is that every time you do that, you're like laying one more brick, laying one more brick. Then all of a sudden you have like a whole pavement, Oh my gosh, the pavement. But So do you follow the UFC at all? Not really.
Not really. My friends do hard out, and they always tell me. I mean, there's times where I think I do follow it, and then people talk to me about it, and
you're like, oh, I don't know anything.
And they say these names I haven't heard of.
Yeah.
Man, I haven't been watching it.
Oh, you're a casual, eh?
I know who the Samoan guys are, obviously.
So there is a cage side analyst whose name is Dean Thomas, and his name, like, Coach Dean, like, he's been with the UFC for a long time. He used to fight on the UFC. But you know, my Airbnb, I stayed there because it was close to the UFC, so I was like, cool, whatever. But like after 2 weeks, the person moved out, and then you know who moved in? Coach Dean.
Oh, yeah,
mate. I couldn't believe it. I was like, what? And so I got to like I was living with this man who's like a professional. He actually goes on Joe Rogan a lot. If you watched recently the Matt Serra, John Rollo, and Dean Thomas, it's the four of them.
Right.
All the baldies. Yeah. You know, the three white baldies and one black baldies. You talking
about Star Wars?
Yeah. So the black guy, that's Dean Thomas. Right. And that was my roommate in Las Vegas.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And so he I got to like get so many good insights from him because he was living with, like, he was just living there, like, obviously in the nicer part of the Airbnb. But it's just like whenever he was available, I would like have a convo with him about what do you think we need to do in New Zealand MMA, like to elevate and to plug better into the, you know, what do we need to do? And he was so open with his thoughts. But the reason I brought him up was because he said to me, he was like, nobody that puts that much effort towards a goal doesn't see it happen. Like when he was talking about what I was doing, he was like, nobody that puts that much effort and energy and commitment towards something doesn't see something good come of it. So it's like what you were saying about, it's like the simple word is passion attracts opportunities, but it's like something more than that. It's just about, just like finally giving control and being like, oh, this is what I want to do my best, can do my stuff over here, and what comes.
I think the other equation to it is growth. And you can't get growth unless you ask the questions. Yeah. Which gives you even more opportunities.
Yeah. Hey, like what questions?
Like, you know how I said passion will lead you down a path that will take you through opportunities. But if you don't learn from the opportunities or learn along the way, it will take you to even more better opportunities within that path. Yeah. Because knowledge is power, sort of thing. But I think passion is not enough, but you got to have growth as well. You have to learn. Yeah. And you have to learn from your mistakes.
Yeah, that's right. That's like when it's like passion gets you in the door. Yeah. But commitment and discipline like keeps you there. Like,
but always grow, always level up.
Yeah. Because
you can't do the same thing.
No, you can't. Yeah. And that's something like from the first kind of 10 years of my career was like, what happened was when I was starting to make these changes, I got a career coach and like a leadership coach. And what I learned...
Is that like a mentor?
Or? It's like a mentor, but they're specifically for your like mindset around your career and your goals. And it's kind of like career counseling, because it's like, if you've ever done counseling or anything, it's like you get the same kind of questions and opportunities to reflect as you do in normal counseling, but this is just purely about your like career mindset. So what I realized through that work I did with the career coach was that I had always done what I knew I could do, what I knew I was good at. That's the kind of work I would went into. And I had been like that since I was a kid, since I was at high school. Like, I was the head girl. Like, I went to Cambodia on a humanitarian aid expedition. And, you know, then I went and worked at that alternative education provider in Papakura. And at the end of that, I went back to Cambodia for 3 months and worked in the prisons. And then I went to law school.
Oh, wow.
And then I went back to Cambodia when I was at law school, worked there for 6 months in the genocide tribunal. And then I came back, and then I got into work at the Human Rights Commission. So it was like, I always did work that I knew I would be good at, and that I knew would be like accepted by, say, the community or my family, because it was like the noble thing. But in saying that, like, bringing it back to what we were talking about, is like, there was no personal growth there, because I was just opening a door that I knew I could get into and move straight to the front of, because that's just was my thing. I was like, my thing was like saving the world, you know?
But it's also a survivor thing. It's like service. Huh.
Yeah, very much that.
Yeah.
Very much that. And it's like, it was really hard for me to get out of that, because like another complex thing of that for me was I was like a very serious, intense, like born again Pentecostal Christian, and that was an added layer for me to which contributed to why I went into that kind of work. But yeah, I mean, like I said, like I got into 10 years of being in that type of work, that whole industry, you know, and realized like, yeah, I can do this work, but it doesn't like satisfy like what I want to do. It's not, you know, it's not what I want to be doing.
That's interesting, eh? Because I haven't heard that said in your perspective in that way.
What do you mean?
Like, you know, these kind of jobs, like to serve people, you know, to help in, you know, social work and just help society and help out people and that kind of stuff. Like, yeah, you've just given me a perspective of how does that reward the individual.
I mean, it does.
It does,
yeah.
But in your sense, you're taking it to another level. You're like, okay, I need to do something for me. Like, because I'm not just all about this.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
it's not burnout, but it's like, okay, it's time for me to.
Yeah, and
I've done my time.
Yeah,
I need to do this.
Yeah. It's hard. It's a hard conversation to have, because yeah, it is very much like a Pacifica thing, and of course like a Samoan thing. To like, it's noble to go into that kind of work where you're giving of yourself. Like, you're not just giving your time, you're giving like your emotion, your emotions, your like mental like strength to go into those kinds of jobs. And it's seen as very like noble for our community, because, you know, obviously it's what our community needs. But
I mean, we're not knocking it. We're just
not at all.
Yeah.
And some people are genuinely like happy to be in that work. But what I was finding like was that I would talk to older people who had been in it for like their whole lives, and man, they were tired, broke, and just like, yeah, tired and broke, you know. And I was like, if they are like that in that age and they enjoy it, you know, imagine what I'm gonna be like, and I don't even enjoy it, you know. I'm gonna be tired, broke, and so depressed.
Yeah.
And so, but it was really hard for me to get out of that, like, because like I said, I did all those things which were all very human rights focused. My first job as a lawyer was as a defense lawyer at the Manukau District Court, which was always my dream, was to work with my people in, you know, in Southside. But you know what, man, that was so hard. Like, it was like every day I saw someone I knew on the court list, either from school or from my family or just from, you know, knowing people. And the toll that took on me, like in my first year of practice, like I just could not have anticipated that. And I didn't have the right supports in place. And yeah, it was really hard. Yeah, so it's like, it was that was kind of like the beginning of, not the beginning of the end, but just the beginning of the realization that like maybe this life that I've crafted for myself is not what I really want to do, or what's not what's good for me.
I've had a whole lot of social workers come on the podcast.
Yeah.
And it's pretty much the same, like the struggles, you know, what they're trying to do for the community, and especially for our people. And it seems like there's always going to be there. There's never an end. There's, you know, there's a goal, but then it just keeps coming until you see the old people that, you know, are tired.
Yeah.
You know, because when they pass away, the problems are still going to be there.
Yeah, that's right.
You know, so we keep on turning the wheel to try and slow things down and make things better. But it seems like the wheels keeps on turning.
Well, that's right. And that's kind of like something I've had to realize myself is like, it's actually just as noble to work in a corporate job and pay your bills and take care of your family.
Yeah.
Like, it's just as noble to do that as it is to work a really difficult, emotionally draining job. So it's like, we need to, when I speak to like students, like law students, I'm like, especially like Pacifica ones, so I'm like, you don't have to know right now what you want to do. Like, don't limit yourself. Because when I was at law school, because I had my whole vision shaped by, you know, so many factors, like I designed my whole degree to be about human rights, international human rights, international criminal, like, you know, Pacific people in the law, all this stuff. So I shaped my degree to do that. And I actively was like, ooh, commercial law, like corporate law, like that's for the fia palangis. It's like, oh, you want to be so cool in your big office, you know. It's that attitude, eh? And so what happened was, when I wanted to get into sports law and applied for jobs, like I didn't have any commercial experience, so of course the firms were not going to pick me up, you know. And so I had to, that's why I started my master's last year, like specializing in corporate and commercial law, just to learn the stuff that I didn't know, just to try and train myself to think commercially. And it's like, if more students, more young Pacific people know that it's okay to be interested in commerce, and it's okay to be interested in corporate law or business, you know, you don't have to, like, we exist outside of trauma, you know, like, to borrow something I read about, like from Black Twitter. It's like, we exist outside of trauma. Like, we don't have to just center ourselves around work that is about trauma. Like, we are more than that. Like, we're so much more than that. And you know what? Like, the other thing I've realized is, like, so many athletes are Pacific Islander and Māori. So it's like, if I'm working in a space to ensure that, you know, sports is fair and sports is well resourced and well structured, that then benefits so many Pacific families and athletes. So I think the biggest factor when it comes to, you know, the negative side of where we're at in society is poverty. And I think, you know, it's important that we see the commercial world, the corporate world, as a means to get out of poverty. You know, if we see our people up there, and then the boards and stuff like that, then it will encourage us.
You know, oh man, if the brown face can get there, I can get there too.
Yeah.
And I think what you're doing, how you said what you're doing now, is noble as well, because you're in that corporate space now. You're doing these. You're going overseas. You're shaking hands with these millionaire CEOs, these these managers and all that.
Catching 7 buses and 3 trains.
But that's the network you're doing. But that's the work you're doing, and that's the opportunities you're getting out of it. You know, and if you're still doing your old job, you'll still be stuck in Auckland doing the same old stuff.
Yeah.
You know, but you're actually setting an example. And it's important. And people have come on the podcast and said, it's important that, we see our brown face in spaces that we don't tend to see ourselves in. Oh, that's really important.
Yeah, man. It's true. That was something really funny about when I was on my trip. Like, so many people messaged me. They're like, "Oh, I'm so inspired. I'm so motivated."
Well, there you go.
I was like, that was not my intention at all, and I'm literally just out here like trying to make things happen. And but it was just like people were just so inspired and like to action. They were inspired to action, and would share with me like, "Oh man, I was so motivated that I went and like signed up for this, or I looked into this, and like now this is my plan," And I was like, man, that's so cool. But that wasn't my intention. Like, I wasn't like, I'm gonna go out there and inspire our people. I was like, nah, I'm doing this for me, man. But it still had that effect of being having a positive impact for people, which was cool.
Yeah, it is. It really is. It really is. And there shouldn't be any resentment for, when we look up at the higher ups and, they're all snobs and all that kind of thing. But they're the ones with the generational wealth. They're the ones where, the kids are born into their own homes and, we need to get to that place.
Yeah.
And I think in living in the Western world, there's a thing that I heard there's things that out there that advice is you play the game or you don't play the game.
Yeah.
Like, you're saying like how, we shouldn't, well, you said something about like, I don't know what the words were, but I was like, don't feel sorry for ourselves. Or don't, you said something along those lines. But, just don't be afraid.
Yeah. It's, like what you said about, it's like the rules of the game, right? Like realizing, it's like a stink realization, but like realizing that we live in like a white man's world, is like, it means you need to learn the white man's rules, and of course that's not ideal. We want to have our own ecosystems. We want to have our own, spaces, and we can, and we are making that happen. But like the spaces that I'm trying to get into, like they are still very traditionally white male. And so, having to learn those rules is imperative. Like you have to do it.
But even with financial stuff, like being in debt, getting out of debt, or the importance of not going to the bank for a loan.
Yeah.
Like simple things like that.
Yeah.
We're behind when it comes to that kind of stuff.
I mean, I think, I don't know that we're behind. I don't know how to properly say it. There are so many people working out there now to increase our financial literacy and just a better understanding of structures and systems and how to navigate them. So I'd say we're on the up, but we definitely are still on the bad side of statistics, but for so many complex reasons. Yeah. So it's not that we're like not trying hard enough. It's very complicated.
Situation. Yeah, it is very complicated. But I think there are a lot of survivors that are doing well.
Oh,
in business.
Many.
I think, we spoke of this before, how, my parents came from Samoa, the first generation to come over from the islands to New Zealand, they all start from scratch. Then it's up to the kids to do one better. Yeah. And then their kids, it goes by generation.
Yeah, so I think, like, that's another reason that I'm, like, in this position that I'm in is that like my grandparents came here, so all 4 of my grandparents came here from the islands. Like my grandpas and one of my grandmothers came from Samoa, and then the other one came from Fiji. So then they had their kids, and then I'm now the next generation. So like, what I've had an extra generation here in New Zealand to try and, you know, to benefit from understanding how it works here and being able to use that as like a launch pad for my next step. So yeah, I don't have a lot of the restrictions that first generation kids have. Well, not restrictions, but like my parents were born and raised here. So although we're Samoan, like they have a good understanding of being New Zealanders, you know.
Yeah. So
yeah, it's interesting. It's an interesting, I don't know, man. It's this just reminds me of you know, Samoans, eh? We're the worst. Like, honestly, I get it. I get why the other islanders are like, oh, Samoans. Honestly, man, we just think we're so like that. We just think we're him, eh? We just think we're him. Well, my uncle always taught me it's the arrogance of Samoa, but like in a positive way, eh? You know, it's like, even though we got colonized, we were like, oh yeah, well, we're gonna put our own frame on top of that, and we're not gonna work in your rubber fields, you know. So it's like, there's something about Samoan culture where we're just so like, you know, so like, I don't know what it is, man. But yeah, somebody said, one of my friends, shout out JD, he also loves sports. Actually, you'd have a good conversation with him. He like tweeted, he was like, possibly the most famous person in the world is Samoan. The Rock, you know? Like, that's crazy, because you know what's crazy about that? There's less than 1 million of us worldwide. There's only about 200,000 on the island, and then the rest of us are just scattered around the world. Like, you know, there's like billions of like singers, and like so many palangis, but possibly the most famous, well-known person in the world is a Samoan. And there's less than 1 million of us. It's crazy, eh? So yeah, I get it. I get why other islands like hate us, because we're them, you know, we're it, Samoans, man.
You know, when you said Samoans, man, the first thing I always think about, this epitomizes our people in my experience. I went to Samoa, and it was 2000, it was the year 2000, and I was at the bank. And you know the ACB building in town? Yeah. And up here I was in the bank there, and I was waiting in line. You know how there's glass doors and that? This old man thought it was open, and he hit the window and fell down.
Oh no!
The whole bank.
Why?
The whole bank.
What?
Cracked up laughing, like so hysterically.
I'm trying not to.
Even the council people.
Why did you tell the story like that?
Nah, because I'm just saying, like, this is our people, you know. Like, I was shocked that everyone was laughing.
It's so bad.
And then they helped the guy out, but he was an old man. But I was thinking, you know what? We Samoans, man. That's us, man.
That's Samoans.
That's us, man.
Like, we'll help you out eventually, but we're gonna laugh first. Yeah, I don't know.
No, I see the kid. I can picture kids laughing, but not the whole bank. Like, everyone, the whole bank laughed. But you know, I was shocked.
It's not
but then,
funny.
But the shock, 1 minute after my shock, I was, you know what, Samoans, you know, that's us.
That's Samoans, man. Honestly, there's something, I don't know. I love being Samoan. It's like, it's just nothing like it.
Well, I think we don't take any fuss, you know. We just straight to the point.
Well,
it is what it is.
We can be a little bit shady, though.
Yeah, we can be shady. But we go to church on Sunday. But, you know, I think it is what it is, you know. We just don't, you know.
Yeah. It is it is a coping mechanism. We've got the laughing thing, you know. It's like, if you don't laugh, you're gonna cry, which is not great for processing trauma and the like. But it's good, yeah, for when people bang into the door at the bank.
Yeah, that was pretty bad.
It's so bad.
That was pretty bad.
Oh man, that's bad. That's bad. Yeah.
You know, with what you learned meeting all these people in America, what barriers do we have in New Zealand that the Americans don't have? We talked about tall poppy syndrome. They don't have. But in terms of like our MMA Federation New Zealand, our goals, what kind of barriers to those goals do we have that America doesn't have? Like, say, the culture. I know the popularity of the sport is one thing, trying to convince, the mainstream that this is an actual sport that could move forward because look at all the achievements. But, there's obvious barriers there. But what are some of the specific things?
Two things which I already knew going onto the trip that we're just not going to change is market and population. So our population is just
small.
We have a population of what? Have we made it to 5 million now? I think we have the same population as Nevada, state, and that's 1 of 50. So we have a small population, which then relates, to our markets, which is going to bring possible financial investment where we'd look if we're not looking at government funding. Our markets are small, and that's in every industry. The New Zealand market is just small relative to the rest of the world. So we're never going to overcome those things. So it's about trying to find other things we can do to encourage the growth of the sport, or the growth of any sport, or just the growth of the market of New Zealand, in general. So those are two things, two barriers. Another barrier is what was one you mentioned? Public perception.
Yeah.
But then there's the desire of governing bodies to consider a change in focus. So we the federation, myself, any other combat sports industry experts can do as much as they want around advocating for change and for improvement. We can do as many law reform projects as we want. We can do as many, big petitions as we want. But if there's no desire from, say, the Ministry of Sport or the Ministry of Culture and Heritage, you have the sport portfolio, to reconsider our focus in terms of sport in New Zealand, that's a massive barrier. If there's nobody in the ministry, or if the Minister of Sport, or say if Sport New Zealand or High Performance Sport New Zealand, if none of them are interested in saying, hey, I know that we have traditionally always funded these sports because that's what's worked. How about we look at other sports that are doing well globally and that we are performing well in? How about we look at those? If there's nobody in those spaces that are willing to push the envelope and ask those questions, that's the biggest barrier, really. Because like I said, we can do as much work as we want on the ground, unless there is a desire or I can't think of the word, a drive to rethink things from a government perspective, then yeah, that's a massive barrier. And I think that comes back to New Zealand culture of being, we're chilled, man. We're laid back. It's lazy is not the word. It's apathetic. We do what works.
Right.
We don't, and that's what's different about the States is they'll try whatever, whereas here we're
yeah,
funding rugby's worked for 100 years. Let's just continue.
And that comes down to culture. Yeah.
It comes down to culture, and somebody there needs to be people who are innovative and being what can we do different to pull New Zealand up, pull New Zealand sports up, because I haven't done the numbers, but I will. I'd say that New Zealand performs really per capita, I'd say New Zealand performs as well as some of those big countries in terms of how many athletes we produce or how many medals we produce per capita, or how many, and not just in the Olympics, like what I said in the MMA worlds, where New Zealand performed well consistently for until before they left the IMF. So yeah, I'd say that New Zealand performs well proportional to how small we are, but there's no desire for people to look into that. There's no desire from that top level. It's just let's just do what works. this is my interpretation anyway. It's like, this just like, let's just do how it works. America's Cup's always going to bring money. Let's put money into yachting. You know, we're always going to have the All Blacks. Now they've got Silver Lake. Let's put investment into rugby. Cricket's cricket. Let's put money into cricket. You know, it's like, of course those are all working, but let's think out of the box here. Like, if we want to stand out in the world in sports, let's think out of the box. And in the ring, hey, or inside the cage, you know, let's think about different ways. Let's be creative. And so if there's no desire from like governing bodies to do that, to think that way, then yeah, we're going to be fighting quite an uphill battle.
I think the key of what you described is money. I love all those sports. Like, but I don't know if it's a case of showing that MMA brings this kind of money, then they'll take notice, right?
Yeah, for sure. So that's like...
And that's where the population comes in. Like,
that's where the population
5 million
comes in.
Doesn't cut it. 5 million people doesn't cut it.
But what it means is we need to like lock into the APAC region. So like Australia Pacific.
Right.
We need to lock... and the MMA, like we already do Oceania stuff with Tahiti and Australia in MMA. And yeah, it's about doing more of that stuff so that we are performing in an international level, and yeah, just remaining locked in and not being just focused on here. Yeah, it's about looking globally and showing that we can perform. But yeah, like the numbers, like I looked at the rankings when I first got in touch with the federation, the rankings of how our amateurs do at the Worlds, and it was incredible, very impressive. Like just the amount of top 10 ranked athletes we had was just incredible, and that's all off the back of the federation, which is not currently an investment partner with Sport New Zealand. So in Sport New Zealand, like you can be a partner, which is where you tick all the boxes to be like an NSO or a national sporting organisation. But to be being an investment partner means that they commit to giving a certain amount of money every year, and that's what they haven't done yet with the federation.
Right. So does the federation tick all the boxes to get in there?
Yeah. So we're like the federation is a partner, but they're not an investment partner, and the criteria for being an investment partner is unclear at the moment. But yeah, it's like there's some work being done there. But yeah, it's like, so that's where the frustrations say, like, let's go back to what you brought up before about when Israel had aired his frustrations around during the COVID times. So obviously very, very frustrating for those athletes who, like, this is their livelihood, and they're seeing other teams being given exemptions and being put through quarantine and all this stuff. But these guys are like having the police sent to their gyms, and obviously very, very like frustrating stuff. But the problem is that we don't even have a seat at the table to say, hey, we're an NSO. The federation is an NSO. These are, we govern the sport in New Zealand. These are professional athletes in our sport. They, this is their livelihood, and coming from a place of advocacy. Because the federation doesn't even have that seat at the table, then we weren't able to, or the federation wasn't able to advocate in that way for the athletes. And that's because it comes back again to like the perception of the sport and how it's not really given any sort of standing in those governing spaces. So of course, Israel was frustrated, and he's now said he'll never fight here again, because, he would rather the money go to Australia. So very understandable. But yeah, that's all just a consequence of this, work that needs to be done, which the federation is trying to do now about getting a bit more credibility and standing with Sport New Zealand.
Right. Man, sounds like a uphill battle.
Mate, it's a big job. Even when I talked to Mark Ratner,
yeah,
and I was like, it's yeah, he was like, it's gonna be a big job, and like he did all the work. Like he led the work for like getting MMA legalized in all the states in New York, which took 8 years.
Right.
So for him,
it took 8 years for them.
for him to say it's a big job, and I was like, yeah, it's a big job, eh? And he was, but you know what he said? He said, but if you know that you want to do it and you love it, then you're the right person to do it. And I was like, hell yeah. Of course this is what I want to do,
Right.
you know?
Right.
This is awesome. Like, what an industry to be a part of, and to be able to use my legal training and my understanding and insight of the sports structures of New Zealand to, you know, possibly bring more opportunities to New Zealand in combat sports. Like, that's incredible. That sounds like an uphill battle I'd like to fight, you know? I'm happy with that. Yeah, so it's a big job, and it's going to, like, the people in this industry have been trying for years to do this, you know, to bring a bit more credibility and standing. So I'm just the newest addition, and I bring a different set of skills that maybe hasn't been here before, but this is in no way my thing that I'm starting, you know, just to make that clear. People have been working on this for a long time, but now with my unique skills and insight, and now with my trip to Las Vegas, like, I'm like, we're going to do this. We're going to make it happen. And everyone's excited. So, yeah, I'm just really grateful, like, to join in with this, like, with this work, which has been going on. Yeah. I mean, what a dream, mate. Imagine that. Imagine you can work in MMA every day of your life. So, like, sometimes when I'm doing work for the Federation, man, I'm just sitting there, I'm like, wow, I'm literally just reading about MMA, writing about MMA, watching MMA, and I'm getting paid for it. Like, that is the dream, you know? So I just need about 7 more of these gigs, like, a week, and then I'll be able to make some good money. But, yeah, it's definitely like I'm happy with it, man. It's cool.
Have you ever listened to the 30 for 30 podcast?
No.
There's a episode on the origin of UFC.
Oh, yeah.
Man, it's so interesting.
It's cool, eh?
It's before Dana White. Did you know it was like a car salesman dude?
Yeah. I forget his name. It's like Adi something or something.
Yeah, Adi. Yeah.
It's interesting. I actually have the book of, I just haven't read it yet. But I do loosely know the origin story of the UFC. I think it's incredible. Like,
it is.
The funny thing about the UFC, right, is people equate MMA with UFC because they created the sport. But the difficult thing, like all these issues I'm talking about that we're having with MMA, the problem is that it grew so fast, and it grew from professional first down. Whereas, you know, most sports, like say rugby, in New Zealand, like, it grows from grassroots, and then, you know, and whenever they started the NRL, and the NRL started poaching players, and that's when the All Blacks were finally like, okay, let's start paying our players, and then it became professional. That's the way that most sports have progressed, whereas MMA started as like this big spectacle, started from, you know, professional fighters who were already big in their own categories fighting each other. And so what that means is no amateurs stuff was growing first.
Right.
So then, so what happened was this big beast, the UFC, you know, they got that first deal from the Ultimate Fighter, and getting on TV, and, you know, getting this big boom of, like, and then the Fertitta brothers and stuff. It's like they created this big beast, which has, like, in countries that there's nothing underneath it, you know, there's no grassroots, there's no amateur. So that's why it's hard now to grow amateur stuff to try and plug into the professional, to create pathways into the professional game.
Because, like you said, they come from other combat sports. Yeah,
that's right. Yeah. Especially in New Zealand, it's like the fighters we have, we've had, like, before they got into MMA, they were just like, they were successful kickboxers, boxers, wrestlers. Like, that was what their thing, and then it was like, go to MMA. So a lot of countries have been able to figure it out, like how to do the pathway stuff, but we haven't yet. Not perfectly. We've got a little bit, but you know, like things like having regional competitions, having north and south, like how boxing has golden gloves. You know, like MMA doesn't have a version of that yet in New Zealand. So
does it have it in other countries?
Golden gloves?
I mean, MMA version of grassroots up.
Yeah, that was what I wanted to do more of in the States. Was I really got a good picture of like the professional game, but I didn't get to go to all the promotion, like the amateur promotions, to try and understand better about whether it's any better. So I'm not sure, but I don't know, man. Yeah, it's hard. So sorry, the thing I was saying about the UFC is like, what's happened is the UFC has created this like big beast, you know, and like, I don't know if you followed that there was a lawsuit filed against the UFC in like 2017 by ex-fighters. And what they were saying is that the UFC was operating as a monopoly, as in like it was eating up its competition and not practicing good like business law in terms of allowing other competitors to exist and locking in their fighters to long contracts and poor conditions and poor pay.
Right. Because who are the rivals to UFC?
Well, I can see Dean Thomas laughing in my head. So the PFL, I would say, is the next biggest, the Professional Fighters League, and Ray Sefo is the president of that organization.
Okay.
So it actually started as like the promotion he started, which was like World Series of Fighting or something. It was something like that. I'm sorry, I don't know, but yeah. And then the third would have been Bellator, but PFL just bought Bellator.
All right.
Yeah. So that's going to be interesting to see. But yeah, I mean, if you're in the MMA industry and you're like heavy on the UFC stuff, there's like this negative attitude that a lot of those UFC heavy people have towards like the PFL, right? Because it's so hard because the UFC is such a big beast, and that's where a lot of fighters want to fight. They want to get to the UFC, which is fair enough. But yeah, there's like this negative attitude about like, oh, who even like, I don't want to go to the PFL, or like even when I was over there, you know, I went to the PFL. Ray Sefo actually got me tickets. Thank you. So shout out Ray Sefo. He was cool, man. I actually went to brunch with him. That was really awesome. And yeah, and it was just, yeah, I just noticed from the people who were involved UFC heavy, like they had like kind of like a negative attitude towards PFL, which is fair enough because they're the competition. But they almost like dismiss them as competition. So it's like they're not even competition, you know? So it's like, it's hard because, yeah, the UFC did create the sport, like as in what we know it to be today, MMA. Yeah. But now it's about, like for me, like when I talk about New Zealand, I'm like, it's about the sport of MMA and what New Zealand can give to MMA and what the MMA can give to New Zealand. It's not about trying to grow the UFC. It's about, sure, trying to link more of our fighters into the UFC. And it's about the UFC seeing us as as a good market to come to, or to just have some sort of partnership with, whatever that looks like. But it's really for the longevity of the sport and for what we want it to bring the most benefit to New Zealand and New Zealanders. It's about the sport of MMA. It's not about the UFC. And like you have to just remind people that. Because people get caught up in the UFC, and obviously, like as a fan, the UFC stuff excites me. But as a regulator, I'm interested in the sport and how we can grow the sport. So it's hard to make that distinction.
It's like same as growing basketball and not growing the NBA or something like that.
Yeah, it's just like that. Yeah, it's like, yeah, every sport's like that, really. But for like I said, like my focus is on MMA. It's like. It's hard because, yeah, as a fan, you're like, yeah, UFC is cool, man. But as a regulator, like, yeah, and somebody who wants to grow the sport, you have to keep reminding yourself. Look into other promotions and look into other ways we can grow the sport outside of the UFC.
With that, looking into the growth of it, do you look at demographics on who's watching it, who's like
Yes.
around the country, like who are interested in this sport.
Yeah, that's right. So the degree, like the audience is like, I think it's like 18 to 35-year-old males is like, that's what it is. And obviously I can't say that for sure, but that's basically what it is. It's like 18 to 35-year-old males. Which is hard because they're not really the ones with a lot of the like wealth or money, you know. They're like the ones who are streaming illegally on crack streams or VIP box. Hey, that's them. So it's like, come on, man. So it's about trying to market the sport to that older audience or to get them involved in some other way. So yeah, but yeah, the demographics is really important, especially for like for like Sky TV or whoever's doing, you know, whoever's got the media licensing and
Do you get
stuff.
into that stuff? The broadcasting rights and
I mean,
trying to get them in that?
I have enough knowledge of it at the moment, but it's not my focus. Like at the moment, regulatory stuff is my focus, which is like the governance and regulations and stuff. But I am interested in getting into like the commercial side.
Yeah.
So it's like for me, right? Like moving the sport up. It's quite funny. Like I'm not like, oh, regulation is I love regulation. It's just like, this is the first thing we need to sort out before we move to the commercial stuff in my mind. Yeah. So it's like, we need to focus on this before we get to that. So, I mean, we can still try and do both at the same time, but yeah. So the broadcasting stuff, like I don't understand perfectly yet, but
I'm getting interested in it, because this is cool podcast on NZR or in New Zealand Radio, NZR? No.
Radio New Zealand?
RNZ, sorry. RNZ about...
NZR is New Zealand Rugby.
Yeah, New Zealand Rugby, because there's a podcast about New Zealand Rugby's deal with Silver Lake. Interesting podcast, it's just all the background about it and stuff, but yeah, and that's when I learned, it mentions that, you know, Silver Lake's got their hands in WWE and UFC. So, man, it's interesting that you're in that space too, and being in New Zealand and NZR, you know, it's all connected.
Yeah, it's all connected, man.
So, you know,
that's why I'm like, look, man.
You got Endeavour,
Warriors, call me back, man.
You know, so, but the TV rights are interesting because I was looking at the NBA, because the NBA after next season the rights finish for ESPN and all of that.
Was it like a really long?
Yeah, it's 11 years.
Yeah.
11 years. So it finishes up after next season. So the NBA wants triple because they know that Amazon and Apple are interested in and Netflix as well. Yeah, interested in doing sports, and they got deeper pockets than all of these networks.
Yeah.
So they're asking for $7 billion a year for each of their packages, which takes them to like 76 billion for next 11 years. You know, and
it's crazy money, eh?
It's crazy money.
It's like, man.
But the thing with that is that now the players, because the Players Association and the NBA, they have to make a deal for this money coming in. The salary caps will go up, you know, and the players will get more money. And it's just crazy to think that amount of money. But then, you know, when you look at the NZR stuff, and they pay, I think Sky buys their rights for 100 million, right? And then, you know, with the way Super Rugby is now, and there's empty seats at the games. Yeah, I'm just wondering, man, was that a good deal now? Or?
Yeah, that's hard. I mean, a lot of sports are having that issue about bums on seats. You know, is what they say. It's like, how much does that matter anymore? With streaming being the way to go and people watching on, you know.
Well, that's the thing. See, if the NBA decides to give some packages to Netflix, I think recently Netflix have pulled out. Because Netflix don't want to have a crew to film the live. Yeah, they rather have someone else. But I think Amazon, they're going to use someone else's crew to film, because they bought NFL's Thursday games. So they show Thursday games only. Yeah, but they want to buy some NBA games. Yeah, so I think their offer is 1.8 billion a year. 1.8 billion a year.
A lot of money, eh?
A lot of money.
That's what I mean. Like when I got into this whole sector more, and just realized how much money is in the world of sports. And I was like, bro.
I'm in the wrong industry.
I was just like, bro, New Zealand, come on. What are we doing to plug into that better? What are we doing to you know?
I always think the economy is the people and tribalism. And because you went to Philadelphia, you know how crazy those sports fans are. You know, Philadelphia sports fans, what they are to the Eagles?
Yeah.
They're like the craziest fans in the whole country.
I learned that when I was there. Did you know what's funny is that guy I told you I met with, shout out Jason, he because I don't know anything about Philadelphia, you know, and I said to him, oh, so like is sports like a big thing here? And he was just like, are you serious? Are you kidding me? And then I was just like, I don't know, man. I don't know Philadelphia. And then we were at this bar and he said, hey, like to the bar guy, the guy pouring the drinks, what are they called? Bartender.
Yeah.
But he said to the bartender, you know what she just said? She just said, is sports a thing here? Oh my gosh, the bartender could not stop laughing. I was like, oh my gosh, okay. Yeah. And then he told me all the stories about,
all the athletes hate going to play in Philadelphia if you're
That's
outside.
What he said.
Because the fans are like, they're hostile.
Yeah.
They're hostile. So you're going to get it. And they're just crazy. Yeah, they're known for being the craziest fans in all the sports in America.
Yeah. That's something I noticed about, because I went to as many live events as I could. Like I went to the AHL, which is the ice hockey.
Right.
And I went to the Pac-12 tournament, the college basketball. And it's just like something I've never seen before is the fan engagement. We do not have that here.
But that's what makes their money. See, if you look at their fan engagement, if you know how crazy they are, you see how much money they spend.
Yeah.
You know what, they buy a uniform every year.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, you see that now with the Warriors because they're winning, but that Go Media Stadium is packed. It's like sold out all the games.
Yeah.
Don't know about next week when because they lost 3 in a row. But
you know what's funny about that? Is like it's so sad. Somebody I was just like, oh yeah. So now the bandwagoners are going to get the true experience. It's like you can't be a Warriors fan unless you have had to learn to keep the faith. This is just me being a hater. Obviously, everybody come on board and support the Warriors, but I was just like...
But you see the crowd. Yeah. You see how they sing the Warriors song?
Yeah.
You see how they do the entertainment, the light show?
Yeah.
It's like NFL, sort of.
Yeah, it is. It's incredible. It's like, how do we how do we sustain that? And then is there a way that we can replicate that for our other teams in other sports or in the same sport or like in other areas in New Zealand?
Yeah, there has to be some tribalism going on. You know, there has to be encouraged. There has to be. We have to, you know what? It's commercial, but you got to get to the point where Philadelphia is. You know, and when I mean about the economy of the people is because you need the people to spend their money on the sport.
Yeah,
you know, the supporters.
It's kind of like Broncos fans.
Yeah,
and Storm fans. You know, like everyone just hates Storm fans.
Australia do it.
Yeah,
Australia do it too.
Yeah,
you know how crazy those fans are for their team. Yeah,
Australia does it well.
You know, but I think it's because, you know, they've got the highlights on TV. You know, it's spectacular. Yeah, the product is good. You know, it's fast game. You know, all the fans are there. They see the crowds and they want to go. You want to be a part of it. It happens here when the All Blacks play and when State of Origin is on, especially with the Islanders. State of Origin, man,
you think we're Australian, eh?
We think we're Australian. You know, we go hard with
I went
New
to
South
school
Wales.
in Australia, so I'm allowed, actually.
You're allowed.
You guys are all fakes.
But every time State of Origin comes around, you're going to pick a team.
Yeah,
and if your partner's the other team, well, too bad. You're not my friend for the 3 games, game 1, 2, game 3. You know, friends, enemies. You know, social media. You see it all over social media.
Yeah,
it's like that, but we need that for all the sports. Yeah, you know, like
which is hard because of our culture in New Zealand.
Exactly,
just being like, oh, I'm not even gonna go to the game. Like I'll just watch it on the TV. Like we're just so chill.
We're so chill.
We're so chill, but it's like, well, if that's who we are, then we need to work with that and figure out how to turn that into fan engagement from home.
Well, you know, the Americans do it great because they got the sports bars. You know how good those sports bars are.
Mate, let me just, please. That was something I could not believe was the sports books in Las Vegas. Have you been to Las Vegas?
No.
The sports books, which is just like what our TAB is here.
There's heaps of them, eh?
But like, not at all what our TAB is like. Oh my gosh, like incredible, just screens everywhere, like, and like 360, and like there's an escalator, and like it's like a cinema. I went to this one Circa Sports, and it's like honestly cinema seating, and then you sit there and there's just honest to God like just full of TVs, any sport that's on. I was like more scared of those than casinos, because for me I don't really go and like slap whatever. I just like I think I gambled like $30 while I was there. But for me, like, I could sit at a sports book and just order a drink and then watch one game, and then as soon as that's finished, you just look at the other screen and there's another game. As soon as that's finished, watch a little bit of golf, like watch a little bit of and then it's like 8 hours later, you know, and you've had like 10 drinks, say, all of a sudden. So, man, the sports books, like, I think that is, you're right. Like, if we could create, because we're lazy here, but we'll go to a bar or we'll go to a pub. So it's like, if we can make like sports bars or sports pubs like a thing, like a big thing, I think that, yeah.
Because it needs to be things like, okay, if you come in your jersey, you get a half price beer. You know, your team wins, you get a half price. You know, everyone gets half price.
Yeah,
that sort of thing.
The like, Warriors bar has the potential to do that kind of thing.
When is that opening up? I heard about that.
I don't know. I kind of hope they do it. I feel like the timing was just almost wrong, because it should have been next year, because it'll 30th. So then it'll be like the 30th, you know, we're opening the bar. It's our 30th, you know, whereas now it's like, I don't know what the marketing is going to be around that. I'm not sure when they're opening, but it'll be cool. I really hope they don't have "wah" in the name.
You don't like that? Wah?
I just think it dates it to like the new era, which is like, it's like a 30-year-old team, and there have been fans since the beginning, and I feel that should be acknowledged rather than just being like, we're the Wah Bar, you know. It's like
the Wah Bar.
It's like the Wah Bar, yeah. And then
I'll bring back Auckland Warriors, I think. Bring back the Auckland Warriors.
Oh, Auckland Warriors. Yeah, I grew up watching my mum play at Carlisle Park, you know, like, it's crazy. It's crazy, the rugby league.
It's crazy there's no more Carlisle Park.
I know.
It's crazy that there's apartments there.
I know. It's nuts, man. All that stuff is really interesting too, like, because part of it's still owned by ARL, well, through their trust. So, because
I heard that they had to sell it to pay for the Warriors to enter the NRL. Is that right?
I'm actually not sure about that, but I know that the clubs of Auckland put money in together to buy Carlisle Park to try and make a home for rugby league. And so there's a bit of controversy about how that money that they make now from Carlisle Park, what is still left of Carlisle Park, like how it should be divided. But I can't go into that. But it is interesting for people to look into. Yeah.
So it sounds like
it's all public knowledge, but you just have to look for it.
All right. Yeah. So it sounds like they own the land, but they're just leasing it. So whoever is on top of there.
And they have like a partnership with another company.
Right.
Where they lease the buildings to, I think, the University of Auckland for their accommodation. And I think part of it was for a seniors home, and then it's like changed now. Yeah, so it's still there, but it's not. I still remember it. Like, I can still see the stands. Still remember them having Perla there. Like, yeah, it was just part of the history. So the Wah Bar pisses me off, because I'm like, come on, man. Rugby league fans have been around longer than bloody 2023. Yeah.
So do you see any way that rugby league will take over rugby union in this country? The way things are going right now? Because I think it's starting to.
I don't know, man. It's hard. It's
rugby union still got the numbers, but I think there's been a shift there, especially since the last World Cup.
The World Cup, that was incredible. It's hard. It's hard because I'm part of the governance of rugby league in New Zealand. So I'm part of the counties. So the way it works is New Zealand Rugby League is the NSO. They are the national sporting organisation. And their members, like their voting members, are the zones, which are like Northland, counties, Akarana, which is like all the central clubs and all the clubs that aren't Southside. And then like Central, which is like, I think like Wellington, I don't know. I should know this better. Wellington Rugby League. So those are all the members. And then I'm a director of the board of Counties Manukau. So I see how rugby league is governed here in New Zealand, like firsthand. So I don't know, man. I don't know if rugby league can overtake rugby union anytime soon. I hope it does.
Yeah, I think it's on the way. It's if there was a start to it, and the end would be rugby league overtaking, I think this is the beginning.
It depends what you're asking, though. Are you saying like school footy, club footy, or are you just talking about the Warriors versus the All Blacks?
I'm talking about the sport in itself.
Yeah.
Like right now, definitely NRL is better than Super Rugby right now.
That's probably just because rugby league is better than union.
Yeah, but the product. I'm a union guy saying that.
I know. That was just weird.
I'd rather watch NRL because it's so exciting. And man,
well, that's the sport. Like that's just the sport, man. Rugby league is much more exciting than rugby union.
It is now. It's a faster game. I mean that 6 again rule when they changed it, man, that's the best thing they could have done.
Yeah.
Rugby league, you know.
Yeah. I was watching a rugby game last night because the Suva Grammar School from Fiji, they brought their under-16s to do a New Zealand tour, and they're playing against Wesley, Sacred Heart, Auckland Boys, Grammar, and Massey High School. And one of our little cousins is playing, so we went to watch the game yesterday. And the whole time I went with my mummy. I was like, why are they doing that, Mum? Why are they doing that? Oh, why do they keep picking it? Oh, I was just like, man, this feels like an entirely different game to my game, man. Like, I was just like, oh my gosh, why are they doing that? Oh, why are they rolling the it's just so funny. It's like so different, but comes from the same place, so it's weird.
Yeah. Well, it's doing well up north, That's they get the crowds and all that. So there's nothing wrong with the game. It's just something wrong with Super Rugby. It's like,
well, there were lots of changes, like around COVID, from what I remember, like around which teams were involved. And then it changed to didn't they change it to like a Pacific version?
Yeah, but I think it started when South Africa left.
Yeah.
And then Australia's not that good. You rather see New Zealand teams play each other rather than them play Australia, let alone see 2 Australian teams play. It's like, who cares,
Yeah, well, that again comes back to just a very basic principle of competition.
Yeah, the competition
makes business. Like competition,
exactly.
It's true in law and it's true in sports. Like if you don't have if your sport is not competitive, like if your competition is not competitive, if you've got one dominant team, like that's not exciting. Like that's boring. That's boring, and it doesn't make more opportunities for people. It makes less incentive for people to like tune in. And
exactly, and that's where Super Rugby is now. If you look at the NRL, look at the bottom of the table. You got the South Sydney Rabbits. You've got some Sarah Origin guys in there. They're at the bottom of the table. You look at the second to last team is Gold Coast Titans. Their biggest loss so far this year has been 4 points.
Yeah,
I mean, it's
weird, man.
That says that's what you call competition.
Yeah,
and Titans look good.
Yeah,
but there's only one game.
Yeah,
one game against Warriors. Yeah.
Yeah, it's well, that's right. It's exciting, right? It's like, ooh.
Anyone can win. Anyone can win on their
Anyone
day.
can win. And then that comes back to, like, as a regulator, I'm like, well, maybe that comes back to how well the sport is being regulated and being invested in. So, like, I don't know. I know that rugby league is the sport of Australia over union compared to here, where union is the sport over league. So it's like maybe rugby union is not doing well over there because it's not being invested in, or it's not, it's not their main sport, and they've also got AFL. So, yeah, I don't know. I don't know if that's what's happening to Super Rugby, because that's weird. I remember growing up and people loved Super Rugby. Well, it wasn't called Super Rugby, or what was it called?
It was called Super 12, Super 10, Super 12, Super 14,
yeah,
Super 20.
Right. That's right.
Yeah. Yeah, they need to do something about it, because All Blacks is just not enough. just the All Blacks, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I'm interested to know about that.
I mean, I think NRL changed the rules to make the game better, right? Rugby Union changed the rules to make the game safer, which, you know, there's no balance. I think you need a balance.
Yeah.
When I look at the rules around safety in NRL, I think they've got it way better than Rugby Union because, you know, anything, for example, the HIA rule, it's good. You know, head knock, you come off. If you fail, what level you on, then you don't play for 11 days.
Yeah.
And then you come back to the game, you know. Because, you know, the studies show that reason why CTE happens is because you get knocked on the head, you get a concussion, but you got to actually heal before it goes back to zero again, and you can go back. But you need that time to heal. What was happening is people getting concussed, not long enough to heal. Yeah. They concussed again.
Yeah, going to training on Tuesday, Thursday, and then getting hit again on Saturday.
Yeah. So you actually need to allow your concussion to heal first.
Yeah.
And I think they said 11 days is before you can go back
what's the rugby rule? Like, what have they done?
I think that it's all, you can't even touch the head, no matter what.
Really?
Even if it's like doesn't look like it or accident.
That's really crazy, right?
And they stop the game. You know, it's
funny, right, when you talk about that kind of concussion stuff. But think about combat sports, like the whole point is to punch someone's head, right? It's to like punch someone in the face. So yeah, it's difficult, like health and safety stuff in combat sports compared to other sports. Yeah. But what I think, like going back to what you said what we were talking about in the beginning, where it was like you need to find that balance and that these are consenting adults playing these sports. It's like, all right, well, what we need to do then as the sport, like governing body, is just provide information and support to those athletes on how to best take care of themselves in the, like, afterwards, you know. So acknowledge that this is the sport and that they need to punch each other in the head, and that's going to result in concussions, and that obviously there's a ref there to ensure that it's done towards, like, you know, an okay threshold, but that afterwards you're not just like, okay, bye. You know, afterwards you're like providing the support, and support is an educational support, but also like medical support, and so that they know, you know, how to take care of themselves, so that, you know, you're not just like, come here to my promotion, get your head, get your head like beaten up, get, you know, all this stuff, and then leave, and then I don't care about you anymore. It's like, if we had better regulation, you know, it's like ensuring that bringing those people into the sport, making sure that they're competing in a safe place, safe way, and then when they leave, they have the information they need to be as safe as possible afterwards.
Because there'll be a crossover with health and safety in the country law, like the legal.
Yeah, possibly like the Health and Safety at Work Act.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, especially if like promotions are companies, they have to, you know, actually abide by health and safety, the Health and Safety Act as a PBC or whatever they are.
I think with Rugby Union, they're more, it looks like they're concerned about the players suing. They're getting lawsuits.
I mean, that's business. It's like, it's you business, say it's about, you market it as health and safety, but it's really about ensuring that your liability is you're covered for liability.
And other factors, sponsors too.
Yeah.
Like sponsors wouldn't want to be attached to a sport that, you know, gives someone CTE and all that kind of stuff. So but if you can prove that by our rules we mitigate concussions,
that's right.
If we can prove it in court, then we did our best. Like, it's a dangerous sport. People get head knocks. If we show that due diligence, we do our best to mitigate all that, then we should be all right. Yeah,
it's always interesting to me when sports, like, where sports goes into law, like, in terms of, like, litigation, because sports, like, there's this understanding that sports governs itself. Like, sports, what is the word? We learned it in, like, criminal law 101, where it's like, because these people are consenting to this assault on their bodies, then the sport, is expected to have rules to regulate itself in terms of like if there are have its own judiciary, right?
Right.
Sports are just expected to do that, and so what that means is that courts are like hesitant to get involved because there's an understanding that they've got their own judicial system that the person should go through. So it's always really interesting to me when things get escalated to the point of litigation. Like there's that guy who I can't remember, is it the Bulldogs? He's suing the Bulldogs for
Jackson Topany.
Yeah. So that's really interesting to me. So because there's not much information about it, but I'm interested to know like if he went through the club's complaint procedures first and exhausted all of that, and now he's going to the courts, because that's a very American thing to do, is go straight to the courts. Like,
because he effectively ended his career by doing that, because I think his lawyers worked out, okay, we worked out you would have had a 10-year career, you would have earned $400,000 a year. That gives it, what was it, $8 million.
Mate, I'm not a numbers person.
$4 million for his career or something. But last year there was a story where the captain, Raymond Faitala-Mariner, he left the club under internal circumstances where he was unhappy with the management, unhappy with something that happened in training, and he left. Now he plays for St. George Dragons, but they let him go. Yeah, and he's the captain.
Yeah.
So there's a question like, well, no one knows why.
Yeah.
He's gone, and now we know why, because he was sticking up for. So maybe Jackson Topany went to him, like their captain, told him, I don't think this is right. It was like torture. Like all I did was come late to training, and I have to get down and wrestle all of you guys as my punishment. Yeah. And
so he might have actually just already exhausted the club's complaint procedures, or he might have felt that they weren't going to give him a fair go. So that's why he sought legal advice and escalated it straight away. But yeah, I'm interested to see how it goes.
Because that'll be an interesting one.
What are your thoughts on it?
Well, see, I get what you have to be an athlete, how you have to, and I get people like Michael Jordan, and I get people like Kobe Bryant who do the extras to be on top, and they sort of set the bar for where you want to be. You can't, if you want to be the extra, if you want to be that top athlete, you gotta do the extras. You gotta have that mentality where second is, you don't want to be second. Second is last. Yeah. If you have that mentality, you're coming to training 2 hours early. You're the last one to leave the field. You're doing every single thing. You're doing your own trainings. You got that mentality to be at the top. And I think these people that do that set that bar. And so there's no excuse really if you want to be the top. Now, if you want to be the top person, damn, I got to be like that guy. Oh, see, it takes a certain person, to get there. And I think what, if you got that mentality, then you got nothing to worry about, And there's comments in NRL shows where they say, it's not for everybody. NRL is not for everybody, And I think they put Jackson Topany under that category of it's not for everybody, like suck it up and
interesting
and do it, So there's that. But then we don't really know what happened. No. Like, was it so bad as punishment that he was so traumatized by it, he doesn't want to play rugby anymore? Or did he fall out of love with the game? There's that as well.
It's good timing on his part too, with the whole, like, there's a big push around mental health and mental well-being, and that as a factor for employers to consider, right? So it's good timing to see what the courts say about that, and how important a factor that is. But yeah, it's interesting. It's like,
maybe the Bulldogs could handle it a different way. Maybe, because I like the idea of, if someone comes late, there needs to be a punishment, right? But I like the idea of everyone gets a punishment. Yeah. Because it's a team. Yeah. If someone lets you down, then you all get a punishment because that person feels bad because you let the team down. You got to feel that way in some way.
Yeah, it's about how far is too far.
Yeah.
But then, who determines that? Like, I've been, it's interesting. It depends on.
I agree with the punishment. I just, there's a line though with the punishment. I think.
Yeah, and I mean, also maybe other stuff had happened. You know, maybe he felt that he was already being like mistreated there, or for some reason being mistreated there. And maybe that's why he was coming late, because it was kind of like, yeah, like you said, lost interest.
Well, what reminded me about that story was I had a guest on the podcast. He played for Gold Coast Titans, but he fell out of love of rugby league to the point where he didn't want to play, but he was making the teams. He was playing for Gold Coast Titans. He didn't want to be there. His family moved over from here to support him over there, and that was like extra pressure.
Oh yeah.
Too scared to tell his family he doesn't love the sport anymore.
Yeah.
I just want to go back to Glenora and just play for fun.
Yeah.
You know?
That's crazy. Yeah, that's like what I was talking about before, about my first 10 years of my career focus, and like just doing what I knew I was good at, and I was like doing well, you know, but I wasn't happy.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's funny that you can even get to the levels of like being a professional rugby league player and still have that issue.
Yeah.
It's just about being true to what you actually really want to do.
Sad thing about that though, he said that it got to the point where he was depressed. He wanted to get injured on purpose, so he wouldn't play.
I watched I watched like a TV show episode where it was like this NFL player, and he was just like, he really didn't want. He was injured, and he was saying to the doctor was like, "Oh, we'll do everything we can to help you," and he was like, "Please just let me stay here. Like, I do not want to go. I don't know how to tell my mum, but I don't want to do it."
But that shit is real, man. Hey, it's real.
It's sad. It's like when I was at uni, I did a research paper about, and like the topic was, what protections is there for what protections are there for young rugby league players in New Zealand being approached by scouts, like NRL scouts, like, because I was just interested because there were all those stories about you know, players moving to Australia and their whole family going, but not understanding that they were just going to a feeder club and that they don't actually have a contract, you know, like, and then obviously feeling the pressure of being over there. And then, you know, there were the sad stories of like people choosing to end their lives, you know, instead of, you know, tell their families that this is what's happened. And so I was interested in looking into that then. And yeah, that's like 10 years ago, you know, I was looking into that stuff. So it's like, that stuff's been around for a long time, and I guess it's still around because, and actually, you know what? I know it's still around because being in rugby league, man, you know, those players that are just so good naturally, but they don't come to training, like they don't want to try hard to get into reps, but you know, they still get in, and they're just like, "Are you gonna go?" And they're just like, like, I don't know. So it's like, yeah, if you're one of those players who's just naturally good, but you just want to play with the boys, you know?
Yeah.
And then you give in to the pressure of going further. Yeah, those people definitely exist who just don't even want to be there. But I mean, yeah, it's hard for those. I imagine it's hard for those people to say no to their families.
Yeah, it's sad. It's sad when you hear about it. But at the same time, when he was telling me the story, I was like, man, just realization, like it's real. It gets real sometimes,
Yeah.
You know, it's not all glamour and all like.
No, it's not. And you know what? To be honest, like this is something I learned from over the last few years with one of my leadership coaches, is like people who, it's not just athletes. It's like people who are used to like achieving, or high achieving people. Like, you can't even enjoy the highs. You know, you work so hard to get to this point, and you know everyone's so proud of you. But all you're thinking about is, what can I do next to get to the next level? You know, so it's like, and then you of course you only post the like glamorous, glitzy stuff, the fun stuff. But really, the rest of the day, you're like, is this it? Like, really, this is it? Like, okay, well, what's next? Yeah, so it's like not being able to enjoy the moment and appreciate the journey. It's hard for high achieving people.
But you know, you probably know a lot of competitive people, but those people, man, they're crazy. Like they love the
athletes,
the competitive ones.
Yeah,
I mean, they love to be better than the people they're facing. They love to train. It's like they can't live without training. It's like training. They need to train. Like,
Yeah, well, that becomes
it's like a drug, eh?
that's like, well, yeah. I mean, I guess it becomes a drug for some people, and I mean, I've watched.
And that's why I think it's not for everybody.
No.
Because those people have set the bar. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Now they're like,
Yeah.
come on, if you can't do this, then you're not gonna make it. You know?
It's not for everybody, but you know what? Like in sports, and especially in combat sports, like you learn quickly if it's not for you.
Yeah.
You know, you learn if you get pieced up in a fight, and then you just can't mentally come back from it to have another fight. Like you just can't. Like it's not for everybody, and just like everything's not for everybody. Like everything is, it's difficult, man. Like if things are mentally difficult in life, you know. So it's not for everybody. But yeah, sports, man, athletes, combat athletes, like they're crazy, man. But they're just so impressive. But they're crazy, you know. It doesn't help that they get hit in the head for a living. So of course they're gonna be a little bit loose up there. But yeah, no, it's just that highs and lows, eh? Like I know he's the main guy in New Zealand, so it's like hard not to talk about him, but like Israel, right? He's just, to me, his mindset is just like the epitome of a combat sports athlete. Like the way he talks about the spaces he goes to when he's training and the commitment, like it's just so like there's something about it that is just so like it draws me to it, you know. And that's where I'm again like, oh man, if I can just have that attitude towards whatever I'm doing, like then I'm gonna be successful. So
plus he's done something no Kiwi has probably ever done. I mean, we've got our famous Kiwis that, you know, have achieved in sports, Olympics and that, but he's done more than that. He's done pop culture. He's part of American pop culture.
He's
now.
a celebrity, you know. There's like, somebody said this recently to me. They were like, there's like athletes and then there's like celebrities. Like Conor McGregor is a celebrity.
Yeah,
I'd say that Izzy is a celebrity. You know, outside, like people know Izzy.
I mean, you see him on Andrew Schultz's podcast.
Yeah, exactly.
He goes on Joe Rogan's podcast.
Yeah.
If you're on that, if you go to these guys' podcasts, you're somebody. Yeah, you're like in pop culture.
Yeah,
you're a part of popular culture. You know, you're part of American culture.
Yeah,
and you're a Kiwi or you're from here, right?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know that he would claim being a Kiwi.
No.
But yes, he's from here,
of
course.
He's from here. And, man.
Those of us that matter claim him. So,
yeah.
But yeah, and he's, I don't know, man. You just watch his stuff and listen to the way he's talking about what he's doing. It's like, man, that's cool.
He's coming here as the property developer now. He's got that.
Yeah.
Building.
Well, that's cool. I mean, like he said, his dad looks after his money. So, and he's a chartered accountant, so you know he's got all that stuff going for him. But yeah, it's awesome. It's so cool. It's just like, it's inspiring stuff. The way that he has gone about what he does, and the thing I love about it is that he has done it by just being himself. Based on, of course, what he shows the public, like based on what he shows the public. Like my favorite thing about Israel is that the first time I ever saw him was at a King of the Ring when he was competing, like in 2014 or 2015.
That would have been a while ago.
Yeah, it was.
Trust Stadium?
I can't remember where it was. It might have been ASB, but I just remember like watching him fight, hearing him talk, and I was like, fucking hell, this guy, like, what is he even like? What a cocky motherfucker. But then I watched him fight, and then there was just something about him that I was like, man, I gotta follow this guy. So I followed him from there, like on social media, and like watched his fights and stuff. And I was like, man, this guy walks the talk, you know. This guy talk the talk, but you know what? He walks the talk, and that is impressive. So since then, I always followed him, but I just always remember it was like at the beginning, I was like, what the hell, this guy, you know, tall poppy syndrome, which I was still living in at the time because I hadn't been healed yet. Yeah. But I was just like, this guy thinks he's the man. And then I was like, oh shit, he is the man.
Have you met him?
Funny story. I've, so for my 30th, I went to UFC 277 in Dallas with my niece, Ebony. And, it was when Kai Kara France was fighting Brandon Moreno, and the crowd, because it was Dallas. So obviously there were just so many Mexicans there to show out for Brandon, you know, and it was just silent for Kai except for me and my niece. We were like, yeah. And so afterwards, I really wanted to go find Kai to tell him that he had some supporters in the crowd. And so I went to where I can't remember how I knew where they were going. Like it was either like the after parties here or like there just weren't that many clubs or something. So I went to try and find Kai, and just as I got there, the line closed. Like they closed, they stopped letting people in. It was just me because my niece wasn't feeling well. It was just me, and I was talking to the bouncer and I was like, bro, I'm here all the way from New Zealand, man. Like I've just come to try and tell my brother that he's, you know, had people cheering for him in the crowd. And then he was like, oh, look, man, like, if it was up to me, I'd let you in, but it's not up to me. And then I said, okay, who's it up to, you know? And he said, that guy over there. He pointed over to this guy. And I was like, oh, yeah, okay. Can I go and ask him? And he was like, you can try, but, you know, he's not going to let you in. I went over to him and I was like, brother, I'm here all the way from New Zealand. This is me, eh? See? #1 networker, eh? I know how to write myself an email. Brother, I'm here all the way from New Zealand. I just wanted to go and tell Kai Kara France, you know, that he had support in the crowd. And it's just me, you know, it's just me. I just want to go in and I'll come straight back out. And he was like, open the thing, eh? And I looked at the other bouncer and I was like, which is probably so annoying for bouncers, but like he let me in. I went in, and then, I walked in, I saw them in a booth. And it was Kai, like I only saw Kai, but then also Daniel Cormier was there, and like I just brushed past him. So funny. Could have taken him down right then and there. No, I couldn't have. But all I heard was this white guy go, Talofa, and I was like, who the hell is this in Texas, Dallas, Texas? This freaking Frank Hickman, like wrestling coach from, he's based in Thailand or whatever, but he also helps with CKB stuff. And because he just clocked that I was Samoan, and he was just like, Talofa, you know? And I was like, and he was with Kai. So I was like, oh, bro, I just want to tell Kai, you know, that to let him know he had fans here. So yeah, I got to do that, which was cool. But Israel wasn't there. I'm getting to the end of the story, promise. But that was really cool. Kai was so nice. I actually went to law school with his brother.
Oh, yeah.
Te Aopihi. I knew him as David, but he's now going by his Māori name. I hope I got that right. So anyway, yeah, he was cool. He was really cool. And then I left there and I was like, man, what a stink nightlife, you know? I was like, I want to go out somewhere. And so I'd seen this bouncer and I was like, hey, are you an Islander? And he was like, yes, I'm Tongan. Like, this guy, Saya, hey. He was so cool. Anyway, he told me where to go next, which was like, I can't remember what it's like, Playtime or something like that. Some club. And I went and caught my Uber there. And actually, funny story, my data wasn't working. And I was like, I've got no data. So I went back and I found Saya and I was like, bro, can you hotspot me so I can get me some data so I can get to the next club? Oh, this is the island coconut, eh? Like, honestly, he was just like, oh yeah, all good, sis. Like, this is this Tongan man I just met in Dallas, so it's like hotspotting me so I can get my Uber. I went to the next club and I was just watching outside because the line was really massive. And then I seen these two like big black SUVs pull up and I was like, oh, that's cool. And then I saw that inside one was like Brandon Moreno, I think. And then I saw in the other one was Israel and like Blood Diamond. And they were just sitting in the back, like doing whatever, they're dancing or whatever. And then I just stood out there and then I just went like this. And then Israel went like this. And then I was like, that's cool. Anyway, I just waited. They went inside the club. Everyone was trying to get in the club, but it was like, you know, they charged like men like $100. Like, it's crazy. Oh, it's crazy, man. These men were paying $100. I was like, what the hell? But then I went up and I was like, hey, can I go in? Like, it's just me. I'm here from New Zealand, you know, like, and then they were just like, yeah, go in. Just went in. Didn't charge me anything. I went in. And then, you know what I heard? Talofa! Like, there was that guy again. I was like, Frank, man, you following me? But he was cool. He got me some drinks and then I was sitting close because he was with Volk and Israel. Like, in their little booth area. And I was just sitting there, and then at one point I was just sitting. It was a strip club, all this is like money everywhere, like naked girls. I was like, this is cool, it's fun, whatever. And then I think I was just standing or sitting there, and then Israel walked past with his 2 bodyguards, and then he turned to me and he goes, "Hey," and he grabbed my hand and he was like, "Hey, oh man, I really love your." I never heard what he said because we were in the strip club, and I didn't want to say, "Oh, what? What did you say?" Hey, "Oh, what? What did you say? Hold on, can you repeat that? Can I write it down?" And of course, he's never going to remember that. Yeah. So those words live in that strip club, and we'll never know what he said to me. He said, "Hey, I love your," and I was just like, "Thanks, man. Thank you." And then he went to the toilet, and then I left, and I was like, "Cool, man."
I think he was saying, "I love your work with the MMA and bringing it back to New Zealand."
I think I can see you being important, and we're gonna work together soon. But that's it. It's crack up though, because I'm always like, man, I'll never know what he said. I don't know what he said, and he'll never know what he said. He won't even remember meeting me. But it's funny. It's crack up to me. But I'm just always like, that's cool. I know I'll meet him. I'll meet him soon. We're gonna work together soon. I've known it for like a year. I've been like feeling it. Just like it's gonna happen. But the right time and for the right reason.
I think with Kaikara France, like when he won that fight, I think was that the time when he met Joe Burrow, the quarterback for Cincinnati.
Oh man, I don't know,
because there was a thing on the news where he didn't know who he was, and the reporter checked. "Oh, Joe Burrow, he wants to meet you," and he was going, "Who?" Everyone knows who Joe Burrow is, but he comes in, shakes his hand, and "Oh, I like what you're doing," and Kaikara's like, "Oh yeah, okay, thanks." and Joe Burrow goes, "Oh, can we take a photo?" And take a photo. "Yeah, thank you." And walks off. And then the reporter came, "Wow, you must be, honestly, I didn't know who that was." I was just cracking up.
That's New Zealand, man. That's New Zealand. It's like our asset and our downfall is like that. We're just like so unplugged and also just don't care. Like anyone can be no one and no one can be anyone. We're just like, it's weird. It's like our thing, but yeah, so crack up. But yeah, MMA, what a sport.
And like, so what's gonna happen the next few months for you? What's on the cards?
What's on the cards, man? So I'm working with a few gyms. So basically, I left my job, right? So I'm not currently practicing as a lawyer, and because you need to have a practicing certificate signed off by your who you're working for, or you need to work on your own account, which I can't do yet because of my because I want to work in sports law, but I need to have sports law experience to be able to say I'm a sports lawyer working on my own account. So at the moment I'm doing some consulting under my brand, which is Cornerman Sports Advisory, and
Cornerman. Oh, okay.
Yeah. It's I love that name, man. It's 3 main things about a good cornerman is expertise. They know their field, they know their sport, they know their fighter, and then perspective. So if you think about how the cornerman views the fight is a different perspective from how the fighter sees it. They can see things that the fighter can't see and see angles, opportunities, and then they can see holes in the other person's game that the fighter can't see. And then the third thing is they know how to communicate that information to their fighter. You'll watch fights and some will be really affirming and positive. Others will be yelling and quite aggressive, but that's what the fighter needs, because if they're a good cornerman, they know that, right? So in my work, as a sports advisor or eventually a sports lawyer, that's what I'm going to do. I have the expertise, perspective that the client doesn't have, and I know how you need to hear it. I know whether I can talk hood with you or I can talk good with you. I can. That's my one of my things I really like about myself is that I can speak different languages in terms of I can speak. I have a white voice and I have a hood voice. It's whatever the person needs for me to get the information across to them, I can do it, so yeah, so Cornerman Sports Advisory is what I'm doing at the moment, and that's like, so the federation contracts me to do work, and then I'm working with a few gyms like around some of their business stuff that they need advice around, and yeah, that's what I'm doing at the moment. So just going to try and build my client base with different combat sports organizations, possibly general sports organizations, and yeah, just really flesh out the work that the federation is going to do over the next kind of couple years around law reform, and yeah, just creating and implementing a strategy for MMA in New Zealand.
Right.
Yeah. So
when you say gyms, you mean like boxing gyms and like city kickboxing, that kind of stuff? Yeah,
no, I don't work city cook. Those guys, I imagine have like their own like advisors that they use, because of how big they are. But yeah, like I'm interested in helping small gyms like plug in better to what's out there in the industry for them, or even like what funding is out there for them. And eventually, like when I can, I'll be able to actually act as a lawyer for those people, like for those organizations. And a lot of our small gyms, like they don't have the resources, the money, or the know-how to like go to a lawyer for things that they might need, like looking over contracts or just like better understanding how the regulations work with the NSOs. Like, so yeah, I'm needing to be proactive about making that information accessible to those organizations, and yeah, approaching them, because they're not going to approach me. Like, I need to go and approach them, and like something in the sports scene, but also in the combat sports scene, especially, is like, if you're not there, like they either need to know who you are through you being there, or they need to know who you are through you meeting you through someone that they know,
right?
To like have credibility. Because if you're just some random person coming and being like, let me look at your contracts, it's like, who the hell are you? Like, you don't know anything about my sport, you don't know anything about my community. So it's like, yeah, just having to be tactful about that.
Nice. That's good. Man, I'm really impressed by your work, and
thank you.
You know what you've done, and man, just talk about inspiring. Like, what you inspired me is the hustle. You got to get out there and do the work. Get out there and do it. You can't just sit around, hoping things will happen. Right. You got to actually get off your ass and go do it. And I get caught sometimes thinking things will just come in, but I see it when I actually do something about it. Get up and do something, and then things happen. Yeah. And then, but the struggle for me now is like, damn, I'll do it again and again, But you have to,
That's the grind, man.
That's the grind.
That's the grind that those big athletes know. Is like, you can like go to the gym and put a fun story of doing like one hill sprint, and then it's like, yeah, you gotta do it again tomorrow and the next day, in the whole 12-week camp. It's
that's
like,
right.
Damn. Yeah, but yeah, thank you. Right. It's been good.
No, enjoyed having this talk. I hope I was a good host.
You were. I just felt like I was having a conversation, which I guess is the ideal thing, right?
Oh, thanks. Yeah.
Yeah. So the Cam Schuster experience, but with less weed.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Have a good weekend, and
weekend isn't it Wednesday? Oh, it's Thursday. Oh my God.
It's Friday tomorrow, so yeah, have a good rest of the weekend.
Yeah. Shout out Maria, my friend. She's getting married. It's her hen's night this weekend. That's my plug. That's the only plug I want to do.
Oh, okay. Do you want to do a plug for yourself? Like, so where do people find you?
So you can find me. Are you gonna put it somewhere? Because it's like long. You can just put, like, my name's really hard to spell. Should I spell my name?
No, I can grab it.
I'll just tell you. But yeah, basically on Instagram, I'm just Adeleina.Cornerman Sports. To have a look there, or on LinkedIn. It's where I do a lot of my LinkedIn is where I do my serious conversational skills, and then Instagram is where I do like my little bit silly, but still the same information.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, mate.